What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? I am BDLM, coming to my buddy J4Y, bringing you episode number 75 of our Dota On Demand podcast. What's going on, man?
We're trying to bring you guys episode 75. I'm having some internet issues here, folks, so, we are sticking through it, though. We want to give this episode so bad that we are just persistent, and we are fighting tooth and nail to get it out there. I'm doing good. I've gotten over the cold recently we were battling. He's still actually in the midst of his battle over there, but he's still being a trooper and sticking with it so we can bring you guys this really important episode with all this new fancy stuff coming out here. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. This is where the YouTube comes in handy. This is the fistful of cough drops that I have ready to get me through this episode. I'm hopped up on Dayquil. I'm popping cough drops left and right.
In the ice?
It's going to
like
happen
a blizzard?
whether or not the internet works or not. If not, then we're just going to do like a flip book kind of thing. We'll just send all you viewers a napkin that we've taken all of our notes on, and it'll be great. One way or another, it's getting out there because this is going to be a great episode, Jay. We got a lot of great stuff to talk about. We have the new Bloom Festival. We have one of the new heroes added to the game, and we also have 6.8. I mean, It's a lot of awesome stuff to talk about, let alone all the awesome viewers that we got to interact with this week.
Yeah, we sure did. Wanted to give some shout-outs, first of all, to a couple people I got to play games with. Hydrogrind, 8-Bit Torrent. There was a few more, and sorry I can't give you all shout-outs because my memory is really seriously awful. But, it was really a lot of fun to get all those games in with all you folks, and I look forward to doing that much more, and hopefully BLM will join me in the next round of games when he feels up to it. Also want to give a shout-out to Jonathan Boss, leaving us that nice comment with a great question on our last episode, and we definitely are going to answer that. Unfortunately, not this episode, nor probably even next episode. Maybe next episode.
Oh.
Well, okay, maybe next time. Well, don't make promises you can't keep. I've been taught that many times. In fact, you've probably told me that with these episodes that I shouldn't do that. But
I have.
All right, maybe next week we can fit it in there. But it's a great question, and we can't wait to answer it. So thank you for leaving that for us to get to.
I will say that I was so prepared, Jay, for this episode to be about Star Ladder and to be about the G League Finals. I had all these notes and all this stuff, and then I got this text like, "Oh hey, guess what just hit Dota? Guess what we should do the cast on this week, Matt?" I go, "Alright, fine." So, but I mean, again, it's some exciting stuff to get to talk about, and the new Bloom Festival starting up. You're gonna be able to tell us more information about that. But I just want to just say to lead it off, I think it's great that we have this. It's this celebration that's a not Western traditional celebration. I mean, you have Dire Tide, which is around many different holidays towards the end of October. And then we also have the sort of end of the year celebration with Wraith Night. This one, it's really just an Eastern celebration, and I really like just getting to learn a little bit about the new year for China.
Yeah, no, it's really nice of Valve to kind of be reaching out more to that Chinese culture. We've done so many things. The internationals have been in North America. I mean, they had the thing in Europe when they introduced it, but really there hasn't been too much that's been kind of reaching out on a global perspective. So it's really cool to see them kind of bring this in, and we get that, exactly like you said, a little taste for what else is out there in the world, and this is it's a great way to really add it in. It's going to be exciting to see them implement all this stuff. There's been 3 days now of announcements. We are on the 3rd, and that probably should be the last one. God, if they do any more, everyone's just going to explode with enjoyment and satisfaction. That's normally how I do it, but yeah, on a different note. So what they've released so far about this event, there's basically, it sounds like it's going to be a separate kind of map/gameplay that they actually haven't released too many details, except the fact that you are going to be fighting the beast. I believe is he the New Year Beast, the new Beast, the Year Beast, the Year Beast. I believe is what he's called. But either way, you're going to be doing battle with him in some kind of fashion. The map's kind of gotten some change-ups to be introducing this new Bloom. There's going to be new things. I guess they really like the idea of those shards that they put in for Wraith Knight. So now they're bringing kind of that back with these Fortune's Favor. There's going to be these Jade tokens that you trade in for lockless bloom bounties, as they say. So meaning there's no locks either. Hey, gotta love that. No more keys for this event, hopefully. There's also be Crimson Parcels. There's things called Flame Salt Ingots, which are going to be used to craft trinkets, they call them, which include explosives, able to distract, damage, or do other things to this year beast. So kind of help you fight him in a way, which is interesting, because that's kind of weird that you need these assistant. It almost sounds like you can't do it without these items, or it's like really, really tough. But either way, it'll be kind of interesting.
I really like that it seems like you playing regular games are sort of what are going to give you this potential to fight the year beast. So it's not just this completely side thing. Like you almost sort of get brought into a little bit just by playing the regular game. At least that's how I interpret this to be. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how that turns out and getting to play some of it. You know, I mean, except for the Dire Tide Crying, I have enjoyed all of the special seasonal events. So definitely looking forward to that. And I mean, another thing that I'm kind of looking forward to too with the random ability draft.
Oh yeah, this new game mode that's coming out here too. It's going to be very trollicious, if you will. It's going to be interesting.
It's going to be rad. 'Cause that's
wow, that was great. I didn't even.
Thank you.
I didn't even catch on to that. I'm glad you explained that.
I
me.
did.
But yeah, it's unlocked at level 11. So for those who are newer to the game, you got to reach level 11 first. But basically, each player is randomly assigned a hero, and then each of those heroes' abilities are placed into this gigantic pool of all those abilities, and then players take turns choosing which abilities their hero will bring into battle. So some examples that they provided were Pouncing Pudge, Axe with Side Blades, Illusionary Orb Magnus. I mean, you know, the world's your oyster, I guess. So very, very interesting.
My comment on those examples are that two of them are really good, and then you're like, why does Axe need side blades? Like, why is Axe the troll here? Like, come on.
But you say that, but yet, I mean, not only side blades, but God knows what else he has. Like, it's so weird to think about, because you try to think of them like their normal selves with like one different ability, but no, all four are most likely going to be different, more or less. I mean, not necessarily, but it could be that way. So you could get like Magnus with Blink and a Finger of Death, and God knows what else. I mean, it's going to be insane. That's all I have to say. And you have to like even remember who got what and like see how that goes around. It's going to be a lot of madness, but it should be, like you said, I think a lot of fun to mix it up every now and then to try to do that. I don't think it's going to be ranked, probably. But you know, who knows what's going to happen out there.
I just want to get Skywrath Mage's Ancient Seal and Finger of Death, and then just laugh. I think that'd be great.
That would be a little much.
You know, no, it's not excessive at all. You go until you can actually one-shot somebody. That's when you know you're playing a good game. Yes.
But yeah.
But I'm definitely looking forward to it. Have you thought of any other fun combinations?
I mean, like I said, it's crazy how many you could probably work with. But I feel like at the end of the day, you're gonna probably want to be a ranged hero of some sort, more or less, just because, or at least with like some of those abilities, you know. I don't even know why I said that, actually. That's not necessarily true. Some things melee is just fine working with. I have no idea. I've never done it in Dota 1. I honestly I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around a hero having 4 completely new hero abilities. I just can't fathom that right now. So really, I guess it comes down to what's their stat gains, what's their primary attribute, and what do they do with it.
That's what I was going to say, because I think that's even something that we've been taking notice of more ourselves, and then especially tonight when we go to talk about Terrorblade later on, is really how important your hero's starting stats can be, and really how big of a difference that can make, let alone the speed, your starting armor, your attack point. I mean, all of these things I think sometimes will get overlooked except for in extreme situations, but really play a big role in how you interact with your own hero abilities. So that's going to be the interesting thing too. I think you get random this hero, then what's going to actually make sense with how my hero can move around the map and how they can attack, because Crystal Maiden with Side Blades may or may not be the greatest thing ever. I'm going to lean towards not.
that doesn't sound good with the whole way she's kind of built. I'm not gonna lie, but you never know. We'll have to do some experimentation and see where that leads us to, I guess. Um, but yeah. So, anyways, those are the kind of bigger announcements that happened right off the bat, and then a certain patch hit the fan. Well, I don't know why it's hitting a fan. It was shared with us. 6.80. So a good amount of changes happening here. Actually, a very good amount of changes happening here. There's a bunch of hero tweaks. Like we were saying earlier, a couple new heroes introduced: Terrorblade and Phoenix. Oh, I don't think I said it in this version, but we're not discussing... Sorry, this is our third time going. We are not discussing Phoenix tonight, guys. We are definitely planning on getting that in next week. But, he just got released tonight, and we just we're all about that in-depth analysis of games, of heroes, and we don't want to just do something willy-nilly. We really want to be able to research it, get our own maybe experience with it, and then get that back out to you guys. So our plan is to take a week, assuming BDL, on his vacation decides to play a little Dota, and get our own experiences, our thoughts, collect them, and then next week give you a really solid understanding of what we think Phoenix is going to do and what he's going to bring to the table. So does that sum it up pretty good?
And take the opportunity to get some games in of your own and tell us what you think of the hero to start with, and we'll be sure to shout out your thoughts and your comments. You can drop them by on our
builds,
Twitters,
skill builds.
Yeah, you can drop them by on the Twitter, the Facebook, and the YouTube comments, and we will of course see those and shout you guys out. So I'm just curious, maybe just a general overview. Maybe this will be more useful later on in the episode after we get to look everything over, but did you have any sort of themes that stuck out to you, or what do you think was sort of the idea behind this patch, or do you think that a lot of it was just sort of like more random tweaks?
It was kind of interesting how I think they approached it. I feel like a lot of the main highly picked supports got a nerf, which was really good. I think that's going to be a good way to diversify the support pool again. Not even major nerfs in the fact that they're not going to be ever picked again either, which is good because you don't want to take someone out of the game. But there's also a lot of the major heroes that kind of I feel like were overlooked a little bit, and maybe they weren't interested in changing them just to get people off the picking of him. Instead, what they did was it seemed like they buffed these other heroes that have been kind of cast out, and saying, hey, we're not going to nerf everyone, but these guys are even better now, and you probably have a better reason to pick them up going forward.
Yeah, I will say that's something that I noticed in looking over a lot of the hero buffs in this patch, is that there are a lot of sort of scary buffs to me, or like, okay, Anti-Mage has the Mana Voice radius increase on the damage from the ultimate. That's not really a huge deal, but it still scares me because I'm still not ready to see Anti-Mage again, right? Like that's just I don't like it. Still makes me feel uncomfortable. Too soon, Executus. I don't want to play. So there were a lot of buffs like that to heroes that we used to see a while ago that have sort of fallen out of favor, but I thought it was interesting if we go and look at the when we go to look at some of the just general game changes that were made. It seems like there's a big push towards being able to move around this patch, being able to respond quickly, and to really fight more often, it seems like, in a lot of cases for these heroes.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does seem like they're trying to push for more of an aggressive gameplay style, and it always favors the crowd favors that for sure, but it's also just it's more action packed, and that not only means it's more exciting to watch, but it's also more involved. It's not just people sitting in their lane for 15-20 minutes getting hand to Midases in the jungle, Crystal Main farming the jungle, and then coming in 30 minutes to fight. Yeah, it's more hands-on action and moving around, like you said, which really does help show unity, because it's those big 5-on-5 fights is where you're going to see a lot of the skill come out of these players. It's how well they're together as a team performing. It's not just individuals, like how Fnatic was pulling off those wins with those two subs just because individually they were good. But when it came down to it, LGD had the more presence because of their 5-on-5 skills, and they were able to take the wins. So that was a little off topic, perhaps, but still the point is it's kind of favoring that type of style, and I think that's a really positive thing for the game overall.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. So how about you just want to run down this list? I think we're actually going to get to talk about most of the major changes. Make sure we hit them all this time.
Yeah, we were actually going to be able to because there's not too many, and some of them are small enough that we're going to just kind of briefly touch on. But we might as well start at the top with the general. I just wanted to say the two new heroes that are introduced in Dota 1, they're both in captain's mode, so it's not like they're like questionable heroes that still need some tweaking here and there. They're both Terribly in 6.73 was added captain's mode, and Phoenix in just 6.79C. He was a newer hero in Dota 1. If you actually recall listening to one of our older episodes, God, it was like our first Christmas one. And we talked about Phoenix getting introduced. First or second? It was something. Maybe I'm off. But either way. Well, probably 6.75. Whatever it was. Anyways, Phoenix was a newer hero. And he just got added. Obviously, 6.79C is very recent. So, that's cool, though, that he is in captain's mode, meaning that these heroes, once kind of adapted to the Dota 2 seed, will be brought in relatively quickly, and then we'll see them in there. But I just wanted to kind of throw that out there as a general statement. So now that I've done that, we can actually get into the general statement in the patch notes. So, this is, for all us pub stompers here, this is wonderful news. Well, not wonderful, it's good news. It's not wonderful, and I'll explain why. But you now lose 1 gold per second if you haven't picked a hero after the selection timer runs out in all pick. But the all pick selection timer increased from 60 to 75, and the pre-creep time reduced from 90 to 75. So obviously those cancel each other out, but you have more time to pick up front. So I'll say why I don't think it's not wonderful, but then I'll let you go after that.
Okay.
Obviously this is a common problem, and it's why they're trying to address it, because of the current ranked all pick meta. People wait until literally the creeps are spawning to decide to try to counter-pick the other team. And it's so frustrating, because you just want to play your heroes. And a lot of us, when we're playing with our friends, just want to play, I want to play Invoker, so I just pick Invoker. And then, by the end of the game, now their whole team looks like they're ready to go against us. It's like, well, that was kind of annoying. So, yeah, it's definitely a great step in the right direction. However, 1 gold a second is not very much. By one time the creeps spawn, they've lost 75 gold at the most, if they take that long, let's say. 75 gold is like an Iron Branch plus a little bit. It's really not that much. If they made it 2 or 3 gold per second, then we'd start talking here. That's a little more apples, you know what I mean? I don't know why I'm saying apples, but you know what I'm trying to get at here. That's a little more punishment. So maybe they need to amp that up a little bit. They're obviously going to see how it affects it, and then I guess evaluate from there, but that's my only reason I'm not thrilled about it yet.
Yeah, I mean, if you play with the right group of people, which I think we do, I'm happy to see that there's some sort of encouragement to pick earlier because, like you said, there's just, I mean, if you're just gonna sit there and try to hard counter pick, I mean, that's go play captain's mode. I think that's kind of the point of all pick is, yeah, obviously if you see that there's this big trend and you haven't picked yet, oh yeah, I'm gonna go towards this hero, but like you said, it's not like a big slap on the wrist, but I'm okay with that. I think that's fine. I mean, you're still going to have people pause right before the game starts to try and give their team more time to pick or stuff like that. There's still going to be ways around this, but I definitely like that because that is a common theme that you see a lot in these all-pick games where people just sit and wait and try to decide. I know in some people's cases it's just because they don't know who to play, they don't know who they feel like playing or whatever, but I mean, it's not. There are plenty of choices. There's
over 100.
Up if you have
there's
to.
Also a random button. So you've got some options if you really can't figure it out. We play with our friends. I can tell you 2 of them if I wanted to. That obviously they literally wait around till the last second, not because they're counter picking, because they literally are just sitting there, and then the last seconds they're like, Matt, who should I pick? Or Jay, who should I pick? It's like, okay. You've done this. How many games? You've played 3 times as many games as I've played. I think you could choose a hero by now. But, some people just get hero block. It's like writer's block, but choosing a hero, I guess. So,
okay. I learned something.
You're welcome for that. But, yeah, I mean, so I can understand it. But I think, like I was saying, this is a good step, right direction. So maybe there'll be a tweaking. But let's all praise Valve for at least, helping us with that kind of problem.
Yeah. The next changes I think are pretty important, and this might actually be well, I guess we can hit it when we actually get to it. But Roshan no longer stops upgrading his HP damage armor at 45 minutes. Roshan upgrade rate increased by 20%, and Roshan bounty rescaled from 105 up to 600 to 150 to 400. I think some much needed love to Roshan, because really, after being ward trapped all this time, that's just embarrassing, right? Like, you're just sitting there, you can't figure it out. Like, we're not all, scientists. Some of us, we just bash people and block spells, and it's just not right that Shadow Shaman got to just make him look so bad. I'm happy that now Roshan's a little bit harder to kill in the later part of the game.
Yep.
He's more formidable now. It's going to be harder for single heroes or groups of 2 heroes to pick him off. And I like this a lot, because I think we've seen a lot, even recently, of different ways of dealing with the Roshan. Not only, the minus armor or using a lot of creeps, but, we'll use Enchantress's Untouchable to slow down his attack speed so much that we can deal with it pretty easily. Or let's ward trap him, or, some of these other really gimmicky ways to deal with this element of the game that really can impact it greatly.
No, I absolutely agree. I think this is a great change. I think actually we were talking before the show, and we're both like, wait, it stops upgrading at 45 minutes? I didn't even really know that was a thing. And I was kind of subconsciously aware that he was getting stronger as the game went, but I didn't really know the details. I actually did some math. Well, I guess I should say research and not math, because the math was already done for me. But he previously was upgrading every 5 minutes. He gained 500 health, 10 damage, and 0.5 max armor strength. Now, with the 20% increase, it's 600 health, 12 damage, and 0.6 armor every 5 minutes. And like you said, it doesn't cap anymore. And there's a lot of games that go over 45 minutes, so that's definitely going to be something that is affected. And I think you kind of hit the nail at the head, not necessarily with the Shadow Shaman ward thing, and we're going to get to that because that's also a hero change in this patch. But also, it's going to kind of make Roshan, once again, this more mighty presence, and not someone that can just be taken out by like 1 or 2 heroes really easily. It's going to definitely take the combined efforts of a few more, like maybe even the team, more smoke attempts, more things that are going to have to like make it more of a focal point in fighting instead of this quick like. I believe I was listening to Synderen talking about this patch, and he said one of the things he really thought was good is, no, you're not going to win a fight middle and then just right away like guarantee Roshan because it's so easy to do, and then get such a huge advantage from that. So I really do like that kind of change. And the bounty one should not be undervalued. I think that's actually a really great change for the game. Making it less random. Instead of killing Roshan and gaining 600 gold towards the beginning of the game, that's a huge difference from 400 gold. 200 can get you that next tier of things, and making it less random, kind of like making Chaos Knight's thing less random, was a good change for him. Similar in this fashion, making gold less random from the gain, I think was a really smart choice by them.
Yeah, I'm fine with bringing the gold for Roshan down. And I was just thinking too, while you were talking about him just being too easy of a target even. It was one of the games we talked about with Fnatic where Hani's Invoker was able to stroll in there with his Forge Spirits and pretty much solo Roshan. Being able to, bounce the aggro back and forth. It really wasn't that difficult for him to do. And I think that's something that should take multiple people. You should be aware that there's so many people missing from the map that Roshan has to be an option. And especially when you have heroes like Alchemists who can go for like the Medallion of Courage and then stack up a bunch of minus armor to make it pretty easy to do. I think you gotta really not make him such an easy target for combinations of like 2 heroes. I feel like 3 is like a number that you should have to expect to bring to be able to take Roshan off the board.
Unless you have Ursa. And then the reason you picked Ursa is probably to kill Roshan in the first place, so, to be fair. But, if you have a Roshan killing team, these changes aren't going to affect it. You're going to kill him no matter what. But, this is like we're kind of saying, is not like for those who were having an easier time because he wasn't as strong, now it's not going to be as easy. So, we don't have to wrap up too much, but I think it's definitely, either way, a very solid implementation there. And that was pretty much it for general. And then they kind of just touched a whole bunch of other stuff.
Oh, yeah, they did.
Many a thing.
let's just go through the list, man. Alchemist, night vision reduced from 1400 to 800. Unstable concoction, maximum shaking duration reduced from 7 to 5.5. Unstable concoction no longer continues to get stronger while it is in the air, which I'll be honest, I did not know was a thing, and I'm just so happy to see these changes made to the spell. I mean, that's kind of I think the big gamble with picking up Alchemist, and when we even started seeing him first in the professional scene, is that sort of like the wild card, like, can we get the concoction off? And, it's like, if you want to really try to get that really long stun, you're going to have to pay for it if you miss it. And now you don't have this extra time on the end of it to have this max charge ready to go. So, what do you think?
Well, we started with a pretty big nerf, and I think it's a good thing to start off on. Obviously, Alchemist has been pretty much picked in almost every professional game recently. He's just been so strong both in the carry and support role. And these nerfs now, I think what's interesting is I'm not sure which it hurts more. I believe it's got to hurt the support role the most, due to the fact that obviously Unstable Concoction was the thing targeted with all of these changes. The night vision being reduced 600, so you can't keep that vision on someone to throw it at the last second, as well as obviously reducing it to 5.5. You only have 5 seconds. Well, it takes 5 seconds to gain the maximum strength. And while maybe we weren't so aware that it gained stronger in the air, some people who were, at least in the pro scene, knew that, and they were throwing it even earlier than that, so it was really easy for them to get this high damage, high stun off. Now, if you really want the damage, you've got to hold it almost to the point of you're going to hurt yourself, and that's a scary thought. So that might not even be getting its max value anymore. And with, like I said, combined with the reduced night vision, now you're really going to have some trouble, I think, getting some of those ganks you had a lot easier time with before. So, not to mention the Shadow Blade combination. People running in with that. Now you're going to have to be that much closer when you Shadow Blade to them. I mean, there's a lot of things that are kind of in play here, but I think the support Alchemist is really what's been affected the most by these changes.
Well, what I kind of think is interesting, too, about it, carry Alchemist has really fallen off quite dramatically. I mean, it used to be we only see carry Alchemists and almost no support Alchemists, and now it's almost all support Alchemists and not as much carry Alchemists.
Right.
I don't know, man. I think this is pretty big nerf, considering that you're not going to have that full strength concoction, or if you do, then you had better be really sure that you're going to be able to get that off. And the night vision reduction, I think, is huge, just being able to gank. I mean, that's kind of something that we see now with mid heroes, is that most of them tend to not have great escapes, right? Like Dragon Knight, like Storm Spirit before you hit 6. So giving Alchemist even a little less of an edge here, I think, really helps some of those mid heroes. And I don't know. I'm wondering if this is enough to kill him, or at least to break the fact that he's in almost every game for sure. Maybe it's enough to take him out completely. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think, well, it's interesting. We have our opinions, and obviously we've been right, we've been wrong. We've been on both sides of the coin. But that's why we're here, for an opinion, obviously. But I don't think it's enough to kill him. I think he'll still... it's still a very great CC. He's also got a great AoE minus armor to bring to the team fight. Those two abilities alone are amazing for team fights. So he'll still be both bringing them those. And, his acid spray did not get affected this patch, so he'll still be doing great work with that. His ultimate, obviously, as a support, not as huge, but you do get to survive longer, which is great for support, because most of them have a lot of trouble with that department. And then the Goblin Grieful's Greed, well, that's obviously more a carry thing for later. But I don't think it's enough, and obviously in pro games and other games in general, you should be warding enough that hopefully the night vision doesn't hurt you too much if you have your wards in a solid place. Like if you're worried about middle ganks, if you can get a ward up on their side of the ramp so you can maintain that vision, those kind of things, hopefully won't impact you too much. And people are just going to have to get used to that reduced time. That's really what it's going to come down to, is not maybe getting as much damage. I think that's where the change is going to be. Not that they're going to be stunning themselves more often, but they're not going to be getting quite as much damage out of it as they used to.
Yeah, I agree with that. Ancient Apparition. Ice Vortex. Spell damage amplification increased from, at the last rank, 25% up to 30%. So 5% in all ranks. Ice Vortex duration increased from 12 to 16 seconds. Ice Vortex aura stickiness increased from 0.1 to standard 0.5 aura value. So the amount of time that you still have the effect on you after you leave the area. What are your thoughts? Because I know you were an Ancient Apparition fan.
I was, and I haven't played him in so long. I feel guilty. Like I've kind of abandoned
You
him
should.
a bit. And I haven't played him middle. There's been so many fun heroes to play middle, and that's where I played him. That I'm like, he feels pretty weak in middle these days. I'm not gonna lie, but I know I'm a little guilty. But I just have to say, first of all, did Spider-Man come into this patch and just spray his webs everywhere? Because there's been a few heroes affected with this stickiness I've seen. I'm just throwing it out there. I could have went a completely different direction. You should be thankful I went with the PG version, okay? Anyways, I think this is an interesting choice. They've been buffing him kind of slow and steady over time. They haven't targeted Ice Vortex, actually. It's kind of interesting that they decided to now give this spell a buff, obviously different from when they were buffing his, giving all his allies. I'm sorry?
Chilling Touch.
Chilling Touch, yeah. Buffing his Chilling Touch. So, the recent builds we've seen him in, people are maxing that out because it's giving your team plenty of damage to work with early game. So now they're trying to make Ice Vortex a little more valuable, a little more bang for your buck. And, these are some good changes all around. 5% more damage amp, that's nice. 4 more seconds, that's a good increase. And then a little bit extra stickiness goes a long way. So, I don't know. I think it's nice.
Yeah, I mean, the Ice Vortex duration I think is really cool because, you could already put out multiples, but really being able to set up sort of almost a trap, I think, for other high magic damage heroes is interesting. I mean, I think obviously the weird thing is with this hero is going to be the cold feet interaction, the fact that you could potentially not stun somebody and that always being a factor. Yeah. But you have Naga Siren, who's still a pretty popular hero, being able to maybe help you set up some good placements on Ice Vortex and being able to hold somebody in place. You have cold feet with an increased chance of being a stun. I don't know if this is enough to make him put him back in the meta, especially because a lot of the supports that we see are providing lots of crowd control. But it's interesting that, like you said, it's not on Chilling Touch now. Now it's on Ice Vortex, and that's pretty cool to see that they're affecting this magic damage amplification aspect.
Next cold feat's going to be just auto stun. That's the next patch.
Oh.
Yeah, so just wait for that. Maybe not. But, I don't know, there's enough healer people in the meta. You'd think maybe A could make a resurgence, but...
Get the Aghanim Scepter?
Well, of course. What supports don't get Aghanim Scepter? Let's be honest. Actually, most of them can get him, too. That's the funny part. But, anyways, so there's AA, Anti-Mage. You've already kind of said that. Mana Void, gone up 150 on his radius. And added AoE targeting cursor for his ultimate, so you get to see what you're actually going to hit, which is, I guess, useful if you're not aware. But not too much more to go into that, other than, like you said, we might making people want to just slightly play him more, but obviously you don't play him for his ultimate, you play him for every single other thing he does in the game, so I don't think that's really going to affect him too much in the grand scheme of things. Yeah?
Yeah, I agree. It's, a small little buff. I still don't want to see him.
Well, no one does. We'll see his brother, but not him. Anyways, Axe, coming down the list here. Base health regen increased from 2 to 3. Berserker's Call duration increased a half a second, almost, roughly. And then the cooldown rescaled from 10 to 16, 14, 12, 10. So, essentially, leveling Berserker's Call has a lot more value than it used to. And, his base health regen, that's a really nice increase. 2 to 3 off the bat is so helpful for starting out, because obviously you normally play him as a jungler, at least in the pub scene. But anyways, he takes a lot of hits no matter what aspect of the game, and obviously that's a really nice change from Mob. What do you think overall?
The base HP regen, I think, is a big point that I kind of wanted to hit, because this is something that we see a couple times in this patch that I feel like I've just never noticed it, but have never really seen in previous patches. And it's interesting because, I wish I could remember who said it off the top of my head, but a professional player sort of giving a nod to the fact that Nyx Assassin has a much higher than average health regeneration per second, and saying that, that actually helps his offlane viability. And so, especially when you look at a hero like Axe, who, is obviously going to be taking a lot of damage in the early part of the game, trying to get some creep aggro to get the culling or the counter helix off. I think it's nice to give him this little bit of a buff. And obviously, this hero, I mean, I don't know if maybe it's a little too early to break out one of the later changes, Jay, but Blink Dagger, not costing any mana, another really nice buff to Axe in particular. And especially when you consider that with the Berserker's Call, it's now a little bit better at rank 1. I mean, Axe gets a lot of help from a lot of different sources in this patch, and we've seen Loda do it before. Maybe not to much avail, but I'm wondering if we're going to get to see him.
He's always been that kind of quirky, like getting picked in very specific lineups, like either a pushy kind of lineup or even not necessarily pushy, but sometimes run middle and push or doing his work there with his battle hunger. But I don't know that these are good enough. I mean, he's been getting so buffed over time too. His ultimate getting the nice changes that they received. He's been a strong hero, but obviously it just has not been enough for people to want to use him as that initiation tool that he is. So, I don't know. I think he's strong. I think he's viable, but I guess I'm just not sure that these teams are quite comfortable running him at this point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously 2 to 3. It could sound small. That's an increase of 50%. There's another hero that 50% increase is important too. We get to that later. But Riki also got a passive health per second increase, and Venomancer actually lost some. So it's really neat to see that this is now another base stat. I mean, last patch and the patch before that, I felt like we saw movement speed being affected a lot more than usual, and now we're seeing health regen being affected. So it's neat to see that these core stats are just as important as the spell changes, and that we're getting to see really all of them being worked on to try and bring heroes into balance.
No, it definitely is interesting, like we were saying, how they tweak certain aspects to make it, get to where they want to be within the game. So we'll see if that, either way, that'll affect my jungling axe, so, that's good. I don't have to build a Vanguard anymore. I'll just build my normal Aghanim's Bloodstone build. It will be good to go. Well, I think it's normal. Normal for me. Bat Rider, attack animation time improved from 0.5 to 0.3, so...
Biggest buff NA.
Well, he's obviously fallen off the scene a good amount. He's still around, but he's had his struggles ever since that base damage nerf. But he's still sticking around, and this only helps him. Now he's got a quicker attack animation, so, with that lower damage, at least he can last hit better. And so I guess that helps in the grand scheme of things. He's always been an AoEer anyway, so it's like if he needs to, he go to the jungle and get some levels that way. But I guess that's just a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, fine with me. Especially when you consider how big of a damage hit he took, that's fine that he gets something back. I'm okay with that. The Beastmaster Call of the Wild Hawk duration reduced to 60 seconds. Call of the Wild Boar reduced to 60 seconds, but Call of the Wild no longer destroys the previous summons on cast, which means that you can have 2 out at once. Whoa. How blown is your mind?
Not very.
Really? All right.
Yeah. Well, let me explain. At first reading, I'm like, oh, cool. That's nice. But in reality, it's a 40-second cooldown, so the most they can overlap is 20 seconds. While that's nice, having 2 Hawks for 20 seconds overlap is pretty sweet. I'm not going to lie. The Boar, not as much that important. It's really about the Hawk vision, I think, more than the Boar. But still, it's nice to assist. Beastmaster's one of those heroes that doesn't really need changes. He's kind of really great where he is, I think. He serves a very good purpose. That ultimate really brings a lot to the table, especially the Og's upgrade, and he doesn't really need a lot of tweaking. So it's kind of interesting to me, actually, that they touched him at all. But, I mean, I know he's not getting picked a lot, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to change a hero just because they're not getting picked. If they're comfortable where they are, I think that's not a bad thing. But we'll see if this plays a part. A lot of times recently, even when we do see him get played, Call of the Wild's getting maxed out anyways, so it's just going to be that much more effective with how people are building him. So I guess it's obviously a good change for him in general.
Yeah, I mean, that's a massive amount of vision increase with the second Hawk. I mean, around the Roshan pit, I mean, it's really going to be hard to be outside of Beastmaster's vision. And, I think that's a really sort of it sort of changes the way I think about Beastmaster a little bit. Obviously, the Primal War initiation is sort of his trademark, and of course he's always had Hawk. But now you get to be like, okay, we're gonna find where they are, and then we sort of get to figure out what we want to do, and then he can go in there and make it happen with the Roar. And I think that's really cool. Yeah, the 2 boars is obviously not a huge deal. I mean, the boar is a really nice slow and everything. If you do have the micro potential to maximize that and put it on multiple people, that's pretty impressive, and that would be, I feel like, a big buff if you are able to take advantage of that. But I think your day-to-day Beastmasters aren't going to be super concerned with making sure that their boars are on different targets.
Your day-to-day Beastmasters. It's like it's their job or something.
You're a Joe Schmo Beastmaster.
Okay.
You're,
I gotcha. That's cool.
Yeah.
Bloodseeker. So they keep buffing him. They're one of these days they're thinking maybe he's gonna get used in the scene or something. But thirst bonus, speed, and damage rescaled from 7/14, 21/28 to 5/15, 25/35. So more as the game progresses. Bloodbath now gives the full hero kill benefit instead of only half if he is within the 325 AoE when it dies. So tons of healing if he's within the radius when the hero dies. So obviously he hasn't had to be the last hero, which has been such a great change, but now he gets tons of health if he's even within the hero. So making it that much more positive for him to be as aggressive as he is. And well, first I'll ask, good change, obviously. What do you think?
I think it's nice that you if you're a Bloodseeker that is starting to fall off, that you don't fall off hard. You don't have to get that last hit. You don't have to be doing super amounts of damage to be able to ensure that you're going to get the kill benefit. Just being in the area is enough to get you the heal, and I think that's important. I mean, this is going to sound terrible. I don't care. Whatever. You can do it. You can buff Bloodseeker. I guess I'd be okay seeing more of him. He's fun. He brings something interesting to the table, but
ever since the buff that now his he gets the thirst gives the global vision, which is I kind of only thought about it a little bit because obviously you don't play with him a lot, so you don't really kind of consider all the options or all the combinations. But I played my X-Sword Invoker recently. Ever since you gave me that Forge Spirit skin, thank you very much. Which you got from which ticket again?
That's a strong question. CIS Rampage?
CIS Carnage, I believe it is.
From
the D2L, yes. But for all those who want this awesome skin for their Forge Spirits, who are playing Invoker, good luck to you, as I've needed good luck. But either way, that's a little off topic. I love playing Sunstrike. It's so fun, right? You get to snipe people. Had a support, actually it was Hydrogram, one of our viewers. He picked a roaming Bloodseeker for our team. And right away, you get that thirst, and you get that global vision. So a couple of their heroes in their tri-lane got a little too hurt and would start running away. Hey, guess who gets to see them from across the map? Bam! I got so many kills. It was ridiculous. It was a great combination. And also, Slark. We were against Slark, and it was kind of countering Slark, too. Because, obviously his ulti only procs when he's not visible to the other team. But guess who got to see him? Our team. So it was really interesting to see how he kind of interacted with Slark too. But either way, I just wanted to say it's cool. I'm not saying pro teams play Bloodseeker against Slark. I'm just saying it's definitely an interesting thing to discover.
That's really neat. I never thought of that. So all right, you know what? Okay, Bloodseeker's cooler.
He's back in.
I approve of Bloodseeker,
especially against these annoying Slarks. Good God.
The next change I'm super excited about. Brewmaster. Primal Split cooldown reduced from, are you ready for it? From 180 at rank 1 to 140, being now 140 to 100 seconds.
Wow. Not affected by algorithms or anything, just baseline.
This is better than his Aghanims upgrade used to be.
Correct.
It is now lower cooldown than it's ever been. Awesome. Brewmaster's back. That's my consensus.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Also, let's not forget the Brewmaster was not a hero that just got played mid. He got played in the off lane. He got played in the tri lane. So we're not just getting a hero back that can potentially be, just another mid hero. but he really is a hero that has the ability to interact everywhere on the map, and we're gonna get to see this Brewmaster who's now dramatically improved. 40 seconds is crazy. Able to fight a lot more. Also, still has the potential to go for that Aghanim Scepter and be able to dish out a ton more damage. And this is yet another hero who benefits from Blink having no mana cost.
Oh yeah, I know. There's definitely a few. It's mostly pretty much all the strength heroes that if it benefited the most, obviously because of their lackluster mana pools. I mean, most brews do like to build that arcane boots, but still have you. It's a great change. But the other reason, obviously, this ulti, not only 40 seconds off is such a big deal in general, but his old Aghanim upgrade used to increase the duration. No longer the case with the way they changed the Aghanims for him. So. And you'll have to excuse my voice. He's hacking up a storm, and my voice is in and out, but we're here still anyways. But now that it doesn't increase the duration like it used to, making that cooldown less obviously has more uptime in general. And he's obviously 95% of him is about his ultimate. So when you lower his cooldown this much, you're substantially buffing the hero, and I completely agree. I think he is coming right back into this game. After this patch, everything goes live.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it too. I mean,
to see the new Aghanims. I want to see it in action.
Yeah, I mean, we've said it before. This is absolutely one of those finesse heroes, and now with the improved Aghanims, there's a lot more to think about. There's a lot more to do, and I'm really curious to see what teams are able to take advantage of it, and what teams don't. Because again, we're at an age in Dota where pocket strats can come out of left field. We get to see heroes that some teams really like, some teams don't. I'm really curious to see what teams are interested in picking up Brewmaster, or if he becomes this hero that everybody wants to use. It's probably going to be the first thing. It's probably just going to be a couple teams that really like picking him up, but I'm definitely excited to have him potentially back in the scene. And Bristleback might be getting pushed back a little bit. I mean, it's only 4 damage.
Pushed back? I don't know. Yep, four base damage reduced. So, pretty decent. It's not as large as like a Naga Siren base damage nerf, but it's still pretty good. Now, obviously, he still does tons of damage through his Quill Spray, and not necessarily his autos right off the bat. So, it's kind of a here and there. It's going to hurt his early game farming and his last hitting. But I think the teams that ran him are still going to run him the same way. Especially because, a lot of times you see him in off lanes. And that's where last hitting really doesn't matter that much at all. You're there for your experience, and you kind of turn your back to everything, actually. You just kind of soak it up as you can. So, I don't know if this is really going to change the way he's picked up in the pro scene that much, but I guess they felt he was just a bit too strong early game, so that's how they wanted to address it.
Yeah, I like it because it's, like you were saying there, it's a change that doesn't really it affects him, but it's not a dramatic effect because you can still just pop Quill Spray to last hit creeps. You might push a little bit more, but you're technically nerfed, but it's not so much that you're all of a sudden going to be turned off to the metagame. So fine by me. And the next set of changes here, controversial, exciting for some, devastating to others. Broodmother can no longer leave the map boundaries. Can we just hooray that, real quick?
I was doing a little dance over here. I'm not going to lie. I was starting to do a little dance. Yeah.
I can't see it, but I'm sure it was glorious.
It was.
Spinweb no longer provides 200 vision, and free pathing is now removed when enemies have vision over you. Beastmaster, hardest counter NA.
New and improved Beastmaster. That third one is like the arrow into Achilles' heel, honestly. That was the shot too far, I think. I absolutely am in love with the first change. I don't see why any hero should be able to leave the boundaries. I really don't. I think it's...
And they can now.
I think it was ridiculous. Exactly. They can't now, and it's a great idea to not let them leave the boundaries. I mean, I think every hero should be in play. I don't know why it should not be accessible to be damaged. And the recent Broodmother, there's a reason she wasn't in Captain's mode. It's because she didn't make sense. She was way too broken. She was way too all over the place. Too, squeamish. That's not the right word. Too difficult to to lock onto and kill. And by doing that, now she has to still stay in the boundaries. Now she still has the cool pathing thing where she can go over cliffs, go over trees and stuff, but you lose that free pathing when they have vision, like you were saying. So a lot of times, obviously, people are keeping that vision up on you, and they're dropping sentries in your webs, and they're keeping tabs on you. So that's going to hurt him substantially, hurt her substantially, I should say, because now you're going to have to really place these webs in a great spot. You're going to have to be a lot more cautious, I think, with your laning presence. And I think someone brought up was the fact that last sitting is going to maybe be a little more difficult, at least early on, when your spawn spiralings is not going to be leveled up enough for you to just clear the wave out as you normally do with Brood. You're going to have to be a lot more cautious. And I'm not saying it's going to well, it's not like I'm going to take her out of the game because it's not like she's in it right now anyways, but I think the third one might have been a little too heavy, but what do you think?
My biggest problem with it is I think they're gonna, it might not be often, but there are gonna be those situations where you literally get trapped in the trees, and I feel like it's gonna feel really stupid. It's not gonna feel good, like a good change. My idea was to just, when she's cliff walking or tree walking, that she loses the movement speed bonus, because then she still feels pretty strong, but it's kind of reasonable. If you get a hold of her, you can keep her there. I mean, we have seen in previous patches where they took a lot of the flying vision out of the game, but I'm just wondering how many situations you're going to have where Broodmothers just sort of get stuck, and then there's this really weak hero that's just able to kill her because they're ranged and she can't get out. I wonder if quelling blades are going to be a lot more important now, because you may need to dig yourself out.
And to de-ward. You got to get those wards down. So get the quelling blades up. But either way, obviously they had to make some changes for her to even have a chance of being back in the game in some capacity, at least in Captain's mode, if they want to bring her back. Which they do, I'm sure. They want every hero eventually to be viable for Captain's mode, so maybe not techies, but we'll see how that goes down the road. But either way, it's a good start. Definitely a good start. And we'll see how much that hurts her about the free pathing being removed. So only time will tell on that front.
Yeah. The next change, Centaur Warrunner Stampede cooldown reduced from 120 at rank 1 to 90 at rank 2, 90 to 75. And last rank, it's the same at 60 seconds. What are your thoughts?
Good change. I mean, it's not dramatic. Obviously, Centaur Warrunner not picked up at all right now. But obviously just helping his early game, getting the pretty substantial reduction at the first and second rank. Letting it get, I guess, more mobile going for your team. And good change. I
mean, Centaur Warrunner aggro hero should have an aggro ultimate, I feel like, not one that's based on a 2-minute timer. And here's another hero that gets buffed because of the buff to Blink Dagger. So really having his aggression amped up in this patch, and I really like that, and I wouldn't mind seeing some Centaur Warrunner. I say that now, and then 2 months down the road when he's never.
Well, no. I want to see him in pros, not against me in a pub, because he just destroys me in a pub. I don't want to see him there. But definitely in the pro scene. Let's see a couple of them picked up. Maybe some jungle centaurs or something. Who knows? The world's your oyster. Clockwork. Hits required to kill power cogs rescaled from 3 at all ranks, just now 2 at the first 3 ranks, and then 3 at the last. So, interesting if they decide to do this. Obviously, they think Clockwork's a little stronger, a little too strong maybe with those power cogs early game. And clearly, well, not clearly, but the typical way Clockwork's leveled is to max out either his Q or E, and then you max out W kind of last a lot of times. Not always, but a lot of times you at least max the Q or E first. So now maybe even giving you that much more incentive to go for those W levels. What do you think?
BLM says that Q is your battery assault, E is your rocket flare, and W is your power cogs.
Thank you, Professor.
You're welcome. I like this change a lot, actually, because I think it's a neat way to try and deal with Clockwork being a strong hero, because I feel like it's really not taken advantage of, the fact that you can kill these things, and in part because it just takes too long. And I really like the fact that this is now potentially a more central part of dealing with Clockwork, and I think it's a good way to sort of try and reel him in, but also keep him viable late game when he's that a very important initiator. And obviously when Heroes' attack speeds are naturally increasing anyway, needing that 3 hit health. I think is important for that last rank.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sad because Crystal Maiden.
Let's have a moment of silence.
Yeah, well, I'm not. I can't do silent.
I guess on a podcast you shouldn't have too many of those, but
they're weird. Base intelligence reduced by 3. I want to play with this. I want to see what it feels like. I think we, see the Crystal Maiden with the aura being maxed a lot to try and make up for any mana issues that she has. But I'm kind of okay with this. I think this just means that maybe Crystal Maiden's going to have to go for an earlier game item that provides her some sort of stats. And of course, she is kind of the be-all end-all for really early aggression as far as supports are concerned.
More branches.
Yes.
Perhaps cheaper branches, may I add. We'll get there.
Go Dagon for the stats.
Might as well. Need it. But, 3 ints. It's 3 less base damage and a little bit less mana to work with. But I don't think, obviously, like I was kind of saying from the start, in my opinion of the overall patch, is she's one of these main supports I was talking about who got these nerfs, but not enough of a nerf to take her out, but enough to kind of slow her roll when she's getting picked. So I think probably a good choice overall to take it that way.
Yeah. Darkseer Ion Shell cooldown reduced from 10 to 9.
Wait, a buff for him?
That he likes.
Wow.
That he likes because we were talking about his win rate and how abysmal it was.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with this. I mean, obviously Vacuum's a super powerful spell, so let's give Darkseer a little bit easier time laning and jungling. Cool with that.
Yeah, it's obviously 1 second's not like a end-all change or anything, but it is nice. And I think when we say the last 4 changes were all just Vacuum timer increased 4 seconds or something, it's been a very consistent change for him. So finally he gets a little bit of light on his end, and that's a good change. Dazzle, weave duration increased in 2024. They buffed Dazzle. I mean, he's been getting picked. What do you think's going on here?
This scares me. I don't know.
Yeah.
This might be. Weave is already really good. I mean, we actually got to see in the Starladder games where Dazzle picked up Naghanim Scepter to further buff that Weave.
Mm-hmm.
This one scares me a little bit. I think, I mean, I haven't seen Dazzle in forever, so okay, have your moment in the spotlight, sir. But I don't see the need per se. I guess really it doesn't matter for when you're initially dropping it, and obviously there's a long window of time that this change doesn't matter, so you can maybe look at it that way. That's really not that big of a deal. But hey, I mean, more armor and or less armor,
or both, perhaps,
or
for 4 more seconds. Yeah, that's nice. Obviously a good buff for him. So yeah, I just, if anything, this will only inspire people to play him that much more. But Death Prophet Exorcism cooldown increased from 100 to 115, and the Silence AoE increased from 350 to 425.
I like giving her some more utility, and I think 15 seconds is fine. I mean that's awful close to 2 minutes.
That's fair.
But yeah, it's a pretty strong ultimate. But I also do like that they're trying to make up for it somewhere else, and the fact that she still has fight potential outside of just popping Exorcism. So pretty alright with me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely going to hurt her. It's going to slow down your times in between your pushes when you run her, and you obviously run her on a team where you're looking to take towers at an early pace. So it's gonna hurt, but I don't think it's too dramatic. Where it's not like a 40-second swing like a Brewmaster thing was. It's it's gonna just be 15 seconds. So it's just gonna be a little more time in between each push, and she'll just have to, I guess, farm with her swarm instead in that meantime. So, and like you said, I do like how they're kind of slightly compensating with a little bit extra radius on the silence. So every little bit helps. Dragon Knight now has a reason. I think this literally reads this when I read it. It read to me, Dragon Knight now has a reason to level Dragon Tail. That's how I read this. I guess I'll read it for everyone else how the way they worded it. But that's how I got it. Dragon Tail cooldown rescaled from 9 to 12, 11, 10, 9. So, thoughts?
I believe before it was just a 0.25 second increase on the stun, correct?
That's
really all you got and then like a little damage or something.
It was so minuscule that literally
Yeah.
you would always choose stats over it every time. Yes.
I even though we've seen a lot of Dragon Knight, I've never particularly found him so strong that you need to nerf him.
Oh,
This is
and
fine.
damage. Sorry, you gain 25 damage at rank too.
Oh, 25.
Woo! Hey, I'm just saying.
This is fine to me. He's a popular hero. I don't think he's so strong that he needs to be nerfed. But yeah, like you said, this kind of makes him a little bit more dynamic instead of max flame breath, max dragon's blood. Move on with life.
Right.
Drow Ranger Silence reworked. This one is swell. And let me break out my reading glasses. It used to be the area of effect, like the Death Prophet Silence, but now releases a wave that silences and does a minor non-interrupting knockback, basically inversely proportionate to how close the hero is to Drow Ranger. So we have a 900 distance silence. That's pretty cool, kind of like conal silence.
Mm-hmm.
The potential to knock back, which will give Drow the potential to gain benefit from her ultimate if it had been knocked off by someone coming in close. I think it's neat that we now see some differences in the silence, the AoE silences, because they've pretty much typically just been area, silence for time, yay. Now I get to see something that I think obviously makes sense with Drow's kit and is a little bit more interesting.
It's kind of like when they diversified Sven and Skeleton King, and they gave them different. It used to be the same exact hammer that stunned on both heroes in Dota 1. And they mixed it up, and they decided, no, that's stupid. We need to give these things a little bit different, different taste. And exactly like you're saying, now this is completely different, and it's so useful for her. She's finally gained a bit of utility. Besides, the frost arrows, yeah, you could say there's a little bit there, but late game, that's obviously only going to help so much. This is really cool, and I've only got to play with it a little bit so far, but from what I've gathered, it's really nice. It feels almost like you're shooting a Morphling waveform at someone, because it's kind of got that like feel to it when you shoot it out from you. 900 range is really far. It's definitely a good distance for sure. And it still maintains this up to 6 second silence. So nothing, the cooldown, mana cost, all that's definitely the same, but now it's just that much better, that it knocks people back. That's so useful. Obviously, with her ultimate, if anyone's within a certain radius, she loses it, and you don't want that to be a problem. Well, now you have this way to hopefully get people kind of off your nuts. I don't know how else to say it, but it's definitely a good way, I think, for people to, get people to back off. So, really great change for her, and she's already been so powerful with the other changes they've made to her that I'm not saying this is bringing her back, but I think this is an absolutely great way to get her back. And Tim Can in the chat, to answer your question, it's a cone wave in a specific direction. It's not like all around her. So you kind of aim it up like you do like a crypt swarm or something, and then you just kind of shoot it out, or a dragon's breathe fire, something like that, and it just goes out in a cone.
Next is Earth Spirit, and I don't know if my voice can hold up to read all this. So maybe you should take this one, friend.
I'll do that. There's quite a few. He's gotten a bunch of changes. Stone Remnant recharge timer increased from 25 to 35, so 10 more seconds for each Stone Remnant. His grip, basically his grip in Boulder Smash switched, is the easiest way to say it. So now his grip, which pulled something towards him, now does the silence instead of the stun. And the smash, where he blasts something away from him, is now the stun instead of the silence. And basically, also rolling boulder now gets interrupted if disabled during the initial rolling charge. So when he's kind of like winding up for the pitch, if you get stunned there or something, you're done. You don't keep going. Kind of like the Timber got affected by something similar along those lines. Targeting someone with the boulder smash will not be blocked by Lincolns, and you can no longer grip or smash magic immune targets, which I like how they say fixes. I thought that was on purpose that you could do that, and apparently it was not.
Why could you do that?
Poor Lifestealer is just getting kicked around. He's like, what's going on here? I just wanted to play.
This might make Earth Spirit a reasonable hero. I think there's a lot more that's affected here than you might otherwise realize. The fact that pool now silences means you can't necessarily do the drop stun roll into combo, which I think is really important. It's not just sort of gimmicky. If you're alive by the end of it, then maybe you'll be okay.
Mhm.
And then obviously being able to control the silence is obviously big and important, but now not being able to control the stun so easily is equally important. I mean, there are obviously, I don't know. You could argue, I think, that one is more important than the other, but I think I like it better this way, that you just sort of can't 1-2 punch people, and then you also can't completely lock people in place for another stun to be set up if you get a really nice grip off.
It's very controversial right now if this was actually a buff to him or not. A lot of people argue that the silence is way more valued than the stun, which I might agree with, obviously, because not as many heroes have a silence as they do a stun, and it's a rather long stun at the end, up to 5 seconds, rather large, and the grip is definitely the easier thing to hit than the smash. So you kind of almost have a more guaranteed silence than you did before. It's really just going to come down to, I guess we'll see how it's kind of impacted as the game goes. I think it's not a bad thing necessarily. I like that it makes you work a little more for finishing your combo, like you're saying, having to kind of kick in that right direction. This hero is a very finesse-based hero. Despite what everyone says, how easy Pub Stomp he is, you have to really be on top of your game with getting all these moves coordinated. So I think this is only going to amplify that. But I'm definitely the 10 more seconds on Stone Remnant recharge, definitely a nerf, obviously, as well as the magic immunity not being able to do that for your allies or enemies. Obviously, definitely nerfs to him. Then I think we're as they should have been in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. I'm like you said, I'm really curious to see how this continues and how much longer it takes for Valve and Ice Frog to think that he's reasonable enough to be brought into Captain's mode. Shaker base movement speed increased by 10 from 300 to 310. Strengthening increased from 2.5 to 2.9. Welcome back, Shaker.
Well, he's already kind of been in the scene, so this is more just like exactly, like, hey, welcome back, let's give you a couple butts, and we kind of forgot about you, so, we feel bad, we feel guilty, so here you go, here's 10 move speed to help your roaming potential that much more, and, straight game, 0.4 level, that's not too shabby, that's a little bit over the course of the game.
Yeah, a pretty big speed swing. I mean, yeah. I think normally you see 5, but 10's pretty big, and yeah, like you said, I mean, some teams, obviously we talked about Lanham's Shaker, the infamous
oh my gosh,
Lanham Shaker.
Good God.
But I think this is a really nice change, because really I feel like almost other than that, you see him sort of to set up other stuff in a tri-lane, but I think I really like Shaker in that roaming role, and making that a little bit easier for him, I think is pretty cool.
Lanham not only carries a totem on his Earthshaker's back, he carries his whole team.
Okay, you stole that from somewhere.
No, I just thought about that for like 20 seconds, and it felt great.
You did hire a writer. Touche. Enchantress base armor reduced by 1.
Yay!
Awesome.
It's not that large yet.
Enigma Black Hole AoE increased by 25. Black Hole cast range increased also by 25.
Good for him. I think that's good.
Yeah. I love the next set of changes.
Oh, yeah.
Faceless Void Chronosphere cooldown reduced from 120, 110 to 100 to 120, 180, and you now have 1,000 movement speed and phase while you're in Chronosphere. Time Walk mana cost also reduced from 120 to 90. I think these are all reasonable, and the movement speed is hilarious.
The movement speed is great. It's something that I think was a smart change coming out from the developers here. Just for the fact that a lot of times what will happen when he catches people with his ulti is that he takes almost half the duration to walk across the stupid thing to get to the people he wants to kill. Now you're double max move speed here running around your thing, so you clearly can get there within a split second to the other side of your Chronosphere if you want, or even escape across it if you're like on the brink of it. Either way, it's not game breaking by any means, but it's a very, very good choice And as well as the other buffs are really big too. Like you said, down about 20 seconds as last rank for Chronosphere, 80-second cooldown, which is only 20 seconds more than Lich's ulti at the last rank. So I'm just saying, a little bit of synergy is starting to build up there.
Just starting.
Just starting too.
Just starting.
No, it's never happened before. This is very first. But then 30 less mana. I mean, obviously he only really has 2 spells that cost mana, but it obviously every little bit helps reducing that. So good changes. I mean, he obviously has not been on the scene at all recently.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do you think this might bring him back?
I don't know about bringing him back. I mean, it's some buffs to his early game. That's nice. He's still going to be really item dependent. I think the one thing that's really nice about this is the fact that you don't have to time leap and then drop the sphere with you at the epicenter so that you're able to do something within it. Now you can sort of time walk and then drop it at the maximum range, and because of the movement speed and the phase, you're going to be able to get to somebody quickly enough so that your time walk is more of an initiate instead of I need to position myself within the chronosphere. Or you could also use it for the escape if you need to. So I really like that interaction, and the phase component of that I think can't be overlooked. That's fantastic, especially when you think about heroes like Nature's Prophet, who are just going to have a lot of junk floating around inside of that sphere, blocking faceless.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Getting to the important targets.
There's so many people in there sometimes. It's a mess, It's like a crowded bus. You're just I'm trying to get to the back, and all these people are in the way. It's a great. That never happens, but you know what I'm trying to say. No, definitely something that shouldn't be overlooked. So let's move on before my analogy actually gets discovered how bad it is. Huskar, Burning Spear duration was increased from 7 to 8. Inner Vitality bonus healed now below 40% increased. From 15, 30, 45, 60 of primary attribute to 30, 45, 60, 75, so a 15% increase across the board. And the cast range increased from 450 to 550. So after they took away his Ghost Scepter love, they decided, you know what, this guy still needs a little help. So that's what they decided to do. What do you think?
This is kind of nice. I think that 1 second increase is actually pretty nice on the Burning Spears. Like we said, even when teams were trying to mess with the Huskar, they weren't having a ton of success. OSG, Osliki Gaming, really the only ones to try and take him out for a spin, and I think it's nice that we maybe have another reason to mess with him. I think this next set of changes might be my favorite in the whole patch. Invoker, Forge Spirit's armor reduced.
The whole patch.
The whole patch. Well, for heroes.
Okay.
Forge Spirit's attack range reduced at the max rank. It is now 690 instead of 900. EMP burn increased at the last rank up to 550 from 400. EMP delay has been set to a static 2.6 instead of changing from 3.7 to 2. Alacrity mana cost reduced. Ghost Walk movement speed, instead of starting at negative 30 and winding up at 0, now starts at negative 30 and ends up at plus 30. What are your thoughts?
That's insane. The Ghost Walk change. It's obviously, especially early levels, it's still going to be that I barely use it just to get the hell out of there. But now that you gain movement speed when you Ghost Walk at the last rank, it's just kind of crazy to me. I think it's going to be a nice change of pace. Allow him to move around a lot more freely in fights when he gets to cast that off. The Forge Spirit nerfs, obviously targeting the way he's been played recently. He's getting picked up a lot more, like we've talked about, but he's being played purely Exort Quas build, and this primarily is so they get the Forge Spirits out quickly and do a lot of pushing and a lot of great harassing with those two spirits. So now that their armor's reduced, they're easier to kill. Their range being shorter. 900 was really long, so I think 690 puts it a lot more in a lot better place, so you can obviously deal with them on a better basis, because they still have a good amount of health and a decent amount of armor. 6 armor late game is not too bad, so they'll still be a little bit annoying to take out, but definitely in a better place. And the EMP, 150 more burn. We've already said previously how they changed it so you gain mana based on that burn, so that much more mana back, as well as delay being static at this point. Now, obviously, late game, it's a nerf, because it's 0.6 seconds longer, but early game, it's a huge buff. So, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Late game, as long as you have all your other crowd controls lined up with either the Shockwave or your Tornado or your other spells, you shouldn't have too many issues still hitting some heroes with that EMP at 2.6 seconds. And I think this is actually maybe, possibly, knock on wood, hopefully opening a gateway to Quas Wex builds again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is almost sort of you have to go back and I think watch some of the replays of professional games where Invoker is played with the Exort, uses the Forge Spirits, and can really just abuse the other hero that he's going up against. Really hard to play against that Forge Spirit. I mean, it's able to help him last hit. It's able to harass you out of the lane. It's a really powerful tool, and so I'm absolutely fine with all these Forge Spirit nerfs. But it's nice that they're trying to balance that out by increasing the viability of the Quas Wex builds. And the Ghost Walk, I think, is really neat too, because you see a hero that winds up being static in the middle of the lane because he has the global presence with Sunstrike. Now actually has a little bit more potential to move around and has this improved escape mechanism. I think it's a nice round of changes to him overall.
Yeah, so let's hope for some Quas Wex builds, in my opinion, and we'll see if that actually happens. But as fun as Sunstrike snipes are, don't get me wrong, I enjoy myself, obviously, with Bloodseeker. But we'll see how that goes down the road here. Jakiro getting a little bit of reworking going on here. When I say a little bit, I mean decent amount of reworking. So the Ice Path damage rescaled. So it used to go from 25 to 100. Now it's just 50 flat across all the ranks. His Liquid Fire DPS increased 5 at all ranks. His Dual Breath burn and slow duration increased from 4 to 5 seconds. The DPS increased dramatically, as well as the interval improving. The attack speed slow increasing from -20 to -30, and no longer has that initial impact damage, but overall is rescaled so that it does 20 more damage at its last rank due to the fact that it's damage over time. So, what are your thoughts on this?
It's fine. I mean, it all works out to be a pretty slight buff to Jakiro, and I'm okay with that. I'll be honest. I thought the Ice Path was set at a static damage a while ago. So yay me for not knowing that. The Dual Breath attack speed slow, I think, is actually kind of nice.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's going to be enough to bring Jakiro to be more important, although because some of these other supports have become less effective in this patch, maybe it is, because you do see a Jakiro once a blue moon, but not that often.
The thing with Jakiro is a lot of times here players would max out that Ice Path, pretty much almost a guarantee, just because if you get the duration increase and you would also gain damage on it. There's a lot of good reasons to level up that Ice Path, but now you're kind of giving players a little more reason to go with that Dual Breath over it, because now the damage is static. It's really you're just gaining kind of the cooldown, or I'm not sorry, not cooldown, the duration, and it's only very slight. It's a fraction of a second that you gain each level, whereas the Dual Breath gains a good amount of damage every rank. And now you also get that -30, so it's even more powerful than it used to be. So I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting. Obviously having an initial damage seems better than all of it being over time. Just for the fact that over time you have health regen, you have heals, you have different things that it is not so effective against. But I think overall it's definitely should be considered as buffs, because a lot of numbers did go up in general. So you'd think that's a buff.
Bigger numbers always better. Pretty sure.
Yes. But yeah, so maybe we'll see him, maybe we won't. But that's usually the chances of either are 50-50. Oh, actually, that's not true at all. Juggernaut, play furry cooldown. Oh god, I'm a little silly. Reduced from goes down 3 seconds at the last rank, essentially. A couple seconds here and there. So, yay.
Fine with me.
Sure, his early game's still the same with it, yeah?
Yeah, and I think it's important to keep his magic immunity potential up, and I think that's a big part of why you pick the Juggernaut, so I'm cool with that. Keeper of the Light, Mana Leak stun duration increased by the last rank, 0.8 seconds to a total of 3 seconds. I feel like this is such a situational occurrence anyway that it's important that it hurt. So I liked it. I was fine with it. What did you think?
That's a long stun. 3 seconds is a very long stun. So I think that's a great change. And like you said, situational. So it's not guaranteed stun, but it's actually, it's funny. I was playing against a Kodal recently. He was on the other team, and he was prioritizing that over his wave. He was getting that and his chakra, and he got like 1 point in his wave. But it was so frustrating to be against, because that, when it gets leveled up, is a lot of mana drain, especially early game when you're struggling with mana on a regular basis. You kind of had to sit there and deal with it, and it would stop you from chasing enemies. It would stop you from running away. It's really effective, and buffing that kind of builds that part of him that you don't see very often. Obviously, later in the game, you normally see mana leaks, so could diversify builds on him, which is even that much better.
I'm still not okay with Kodal coming back. It's a very much like anti-mage. I'm still, we broke up on bad terms. He was abusive. Long story short, I just don't want to see the Kodal still, and so this is one of those. It's like the anti-mage buff. I'm just like, fine, but I'm not happy about it.
Oh God, if there's any PL changes, we're screwed.
Yep. Legion Commander, Moment of Courage changed. Now only procs 1 extra lifesteal attack. The buff grace period increased by 0.5 seconds, and the cooldown reduced from 1.2 to 0.9. I'm wondering what this actually does by the end of the day to how much lifestealing you get to do. I unfortunately don't have the numbers in front of me for that. What are your thoughts?
Why the hell did it proc multiple times before? I never understood that. I'm like, is this a bug that is just still going? Like, it just seemed to proc all the time, and it was like multiple hits, like it's saying. I'm like, this doesn't seem right. I'm pretty sure the tooltip says extra attack, like attack. But, sorry, I'm just trying to be grammatical here. And I believe attack is not multiple or plural. So, anyways.
Jay has lost the Legion Commander one too many times, apparently.
Oh my gosh, have I ever. He is very frustrated. But, no, it's a very solid change. It's definitely going to hurt him because, or her, because it only that one attack instead of multiple is a pretty big deal. 0.3 seconds less on the cooldown. It's kind of like buffing any of those kind of RNG things. It's like, yeah, it could be helpful or not really. I mean, depends on your luck with RNG, I suppose. But I guess that's kind of a buff there. And grace period increased 0.5 to 1 second. Sure, that's great.
Makes it more regular too. I mean, obviously the amount of life she's stealing, and I think that's Legion Commander can be a frustrating hero to play against. So I think that's fine, making her
especially if
more
you're a
regular.
Creep.
Yes, it's terrible against Legion Commander. She is no fun. Leshrac, Lightning Storm affected. The jumps reduced at the last rank. The damage reduced. The cooldown reduced from 5.5 to 4 seconds. And the mana cost also reduced.
Everything's reduced! It's
Okay.
a flash sale. Everything off.
I guess it makes sense because you seem to find Leshracs that will only level like 2 of their spells and feel strapped for mana. So now Leshrac can buy Blink Daggers, so I'm trying to say.
Split Earth and Dabao Yig is like always the strongest choice, or has been, and probably the most common builds you'll see. Unless he's like a middle Leshrac, a lot of times you'll see middle ones go that Lightning Storm build to push the lane out and get some kills and harassment out. But I think this is definitely. I think it's a buff. I mean, it's only 1 less jump. Only like 5 less damage at each rank, so it's really not big numbers. And then 1.5 seconds is actually a pretty big deal when it's already 5.5. That's a pretty big reduction in cooldown, and roughly 20 less mana, or across the board, 15 to 20 mana reduced at the ranks. Also really nice to have. So I think this gives you that much more incentive to keep leveling up, or start leveling up the Lightning Storm, I should say, for this hero. I mean, if you're going to run him in a push, you're going to get Edict still. I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be what you need him for, but maybe you'll put it over Split Earth or something. I don't know. We'll see how that prioritized goes, I guess. Yeah,
I mean, just because he's, typically going to be your support, or he might be able to transition into a semi-carry. I like the fact that he now has a little bit more options. He's not so constricted in the mana, even though he does have this potential to transition into a late game role. Lena, Dragon Slave initial and the final AoE increased. Fiery Soul duration increased by 2 seconds. Fiery Soul movement speed increased by 1% at each rank. Lena, another hero that's been getting buffed pretty regularly, and I'm okay with it. I want to see her. I think she's got some swell potential. What about you?
I think this is fine. I mean, Fiery Soul, obviously, especially as a support, you're not going to get that until very late in the game. So it's not really going to impact her too much until later on, and then she only gains that speed. So yeah, I don't think it's obviously going to sway people's opinions on her at all. If it tweaked damage numbers, that's really where she comes into play, is her damage numbers. So that's where you'll see people maybe start raising a brow a little more if something like that got changed up, or like something like Lion, something like that happened, perhaps. Which I guess I should address since he's next. Oh, how convenient. So, his Aghanim Scepter now causes the Finger of Death to hit units within a 200 AoE of the primary target.
Units within a 200 AoE, so it's not just heroes.
Yes.
All
Roshans within the area.
Ooh, poor Roshan. This is hilarious, and that's why I'm okay with it. I just want to see it. I want to see it happen one time. I want to see it be glorious. But 200's really small, so I don't.
You remember when we discussed this? This was in one of those. We discussed it was like potential patch notes or something. Mm-hmm. We're like, oh, how cool is that? Or it was like, I think the original one was like it would jump to one person that was close. So now it's even better than that one was. But 200, like you said, very tiny AoE. It's almost melee range, so it's very, very close. It's almost like the Skywrath in a way of the radius, very small. But you have that potential, and the only thing why this isn't really such a big deal, at least to me, is the fact that Lion gets played support, meaning not Aghanim, not very often.
And I feel like the times you see him play support, he's probably going to go for a Blink Dagger before he goes for an Aghanim.
Oh, absolutely, especially now.
Any other items. Yeah. So it's cool, but it's going to be like the Silencer Aghanims. I don't think you're going to wind up seeing it much, and if you do, it's mostly going to be for trolling. Lone Druid Spear Bearer Entangle is no longer an orb effect. Very cool. The number of times that this comes into effect is going to be so small. Do you have any thoughts?
No, it's fine.
You can now entangle and maelstrom
at the same time.
That doesn't...
Terrific.
Yes. Lycan, Wolf Fade Time decreased from 3 to 1.7. Lycan level 3 wolves now have invisibility. Level 4 wolves have a passive ability that gives them 15 health regen. Thoughts?
So good. This is something that definitely could bring him back in. I think this is amazing. You always seem to level your wolves anyways, because they're obviously a large part of his early game damage and mid game as well. And now that his invisibility comes sooner, the fade time's even lower or shorter, and the 15 health regen passive. Now, obviously, these things have less base health. That change happened, and that's what kind of took him out of the meta when it did. But 15 health regen is very substantial and allows you to go from creep to creep, creep camp to creep camp very easily. They can tank damage now and regen it very quickly. All you have to do is micro them a little bit so they distribute the damage. His very early game is still going to be kind of rough because he doesn't have that regen to help him out in the jungle. But later on, he's going to be a reckoning force, and he always is anyways, but this is just going to make it that much better for him to go around with those wolves. He can juggle with Roshan that much easier with the 15 health regen on these things. Obviously, well, not necessarily now with the Roshan buffs, but you know what I'm saying. I definitely think these are great buffs for him.
I feel like Lycan overall gets nerfed this patch. Like, Roshan's harder. Necronomicon comes off of its golden throne, as we'll see. It gets much weaker. If there's ever a time for Lycan to be able to come back after his nerfs, I feel like it's kind of come and pass. I don't know that this is enough. Like you said, it's level 4, so it's going to be later in the game when he might already have the health items to tank just fine in the jungle. Roshan's going to be getting stronger sooner, so is it even a big deal that he's... is he still going to be able to solo Roshan with those wolves? Probably. can be more difficult, can probably juggle it, but we'll have to see. So, I don't know. I feel like he still needs more than this, but I don't really know what form that would take.
You're saying early game buffs is what he needs again, essentially. But at the same time, if you just babysit him, he doesn't really, or if he just gets short lane, he doesn't really need that. I mean, he's no longer really an early game jungle threat. He's definitely more of a laning hero at this point, I feel like, which is not necessarily a bad thing, as long as he's in a lane where he feels safe enough, and I think that would be not such a bad thing.
I would almost like to see the health regen spread across the levels, maybe parabolically, not linearly. So you don't have maybe,
Oh, you're saying not level 4 get 15.
Or if it's 15 at 4, then it can be 5 at 3, and then 2 at 2 and 1 at 1 or something like that. I don't know. I don't think he's going to come back from this with this. Magnus Basint increased by 2. W4
Yay!
Rejoice. Blink Dagger, Rejoice.
Oh my god, he has that much more in. That's great.
There you go. Medusa, mana shield damage absorption increased by 0.25 at all ranks.
Okay.
And the people rejoiced. Meepo, divided we stand, level requirement reduced by 1 at ranks 1 and 2. So he can now get his ultimate at level 3.
This is scary, dude.
At level 10. At level 17. Oh, it's at all ranks. Pardon me.
Yeah.
And divided we stand now passively reduces your revive timer by 10, 20, and 30%.
This is scary as hell. I'm so worried that. Okay, Bonk plays a good Meepo. He really does, and so when we play with him, he pretty much plays Meepo now every game. He's been playing it before this buff happened, because we saw the change to level 4 getting the vibe we stand, and he really wanted to try it out, and now it's even better by a lot. 30% reduced revive timer at that last rank, which is so easy to get because he gets so much experience. Oh, speaking of Bonk, he's in the chat. But yeah, I just think this is a crazy buff for him because obviously he does die probably more often than your average bear. And, to have this 30% reduced time. I mean, late game, let's say 60 seconds you're normally dead. Well, take a third off that. Now it's only 40 seconds roughly you're dead for. I mean, that's such a large decrease in time. And I think this is just going to be massive. He's going to be so, more carefree, I should say. Or, yeah, carefree, that's the right word. He's going to be more willing to get those initiations and not worry about suiciding yourself and having that dreaded 80-second cooldown or death timer because you're so far ahead in experience. Well, now I can go in and pretty much be around the same everyone else's death timer, even though I'm ahead of them in levels. I think this is amazing buffs for him.
Yeah, I think this is good so long as you have map control too. I mean, obviously, if you're down to just your tier 3s and the enemy's knocking at the gate, the fact that you come up sooner isn't necessarily a big deal because you're just going to be alone to defend. But I do, like what you're saying, you're leveling up faster, you're getting ahead of everybody else, you're going to be dead longer than everybody else. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And No Tail, just saying,
please. No, if No Tail plays him in pro game, I have zero problem with that. But if I have anyone besides Bonk playing him in my games on my team, I may worry a little bit. Especially if it'd be me. I'd be worried sick. So, anyways, Morphling.
This next change, I'm actually not sure. Yeah. This one I'm actually okay with. Morphling had his time, right? I'm less sick about Morphling coming back than some of these other heroes.
You say that now.
That's true. You can now cast an attack while in waveform. That's pretty sick. And you consider that Lincoln's has also been buffed/changed since we've seen Morphling. I want to say that we could see something out of this Morphling person in the coming days. I think this is a really interesting change and has a lot of potential. I mean, now you're waveforming over people and you're just dropping the hammer while you're
throwing those adaptive strikes out what's up, dog?
It ain't nothing.
But, I mean, it's not a huge change, but it definitely is nice. You can start your shifting around your stats, too, while you're waving around. So, I mean, that kind of, every little bit helps, I guess. But, I agree. He had his interesting perks, but he also has very non-interesting sides too. So maybe we'll see, maybe we'll not. But compared to like Luna, I'll take Morphling. I'll just say that straight up. But we'll see if that changes anytime soon. I don't think so. Nature's Prophet. Wrath of Nature mana cost increased by 25, so nothing major there. But I guess they want to slow him down a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. It's pretty. It feels really expensive, rank 1.
Yeah.
Like right when you're 6. But you can go back to the fountain on a really
Right.
short cooldown, so okay,
Big
that's
deal.
fine. I'm okay with this change. Necrophos, Death Pulse. Now, hits units in Fog of War. There's a similar change to Witch Doctor, and I think I like it. It's a little weird that this works, and I'm like wondering like if there are going to be really awkward times where like you find out that there's a hero in the fog because they accidentally get hit by something. Like if somebody's lurking in the trees waiting for a good opportunity to gank you, and then all of a sudden, oh hey, Cask or a Death Pulse just ran off into the trees. We know Necrophos and Witch Doctor are the same, don't really get played that much, so hey, maybe that's not a bad thing that they have this potential to get a little bit more information.
Yeah, you said it completely right there, 100%. So, good call. Night Stalker. Crippling Fear. Night Mischance increasing 40-50%. So, 10% more mischance on his spell there. Pretty good.
Nyx Assassin cast range on Impale now matches the travel range. I'm not even going to let you talk on that one, because that's just what it is.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, Ogre Magi. Refined Fire Blast. Mana cost changed from 400 to 60% of your current mana. Jay?
Well, as the Ogre
Resident.
Magi player resident, that's the word I was looking for. Good change. The reason I say that, obviously, if you cast it in the beginning of a fight, there goes all your mana. But as the fight progresses, he obviously has a lot of trouble casting this more than once because it's 400 mana. That's insane. So now the fact that it scales with your current mana is really great for him. He'll be able to get a lot more casts off throughout a fight, and I think this was a very smart choice that they made. Now, granted, these are one of those changes that, once again, you're not going to be like really seeing a lot because there's not a lot of games where he's able to get his Oghnims per se, and especially in the pro scene, he's almost non-existent again. But and he definitely never built Ognim Scepters in pro games, but it's still, at the end of the day, it doesn't mean you shouldn't tweak things just because they're not in the scene. So I think that's a good change.
Yeah, and the Unrefined Fire Blast on half as long a cooldown as the regular Fire Blast too.
Right.
So I mean,
Very
if
true.
you're actually able to get this, then you can just blow people up and not really have to worry about the mana on I mean, obviously, like at some point, the fact that you can keep spamming this, it's cool that you can't really cast anything else. And I think that is, like you said, it's rare that you might find an Ogre Magi with an Ognim Scepter, but I think that's a nice way to sort of make this hero not need like some sort of massive amount of regen to feel useful.
Yeah. Omni Knight, his stickiness of his degen aura increased from 1 to 2 seconds. And the note there is that default auras are 0.5 seconds. So it was already above the default, and now it's up to 2 seconds of that extra time it lingers. What do you think?
I want to see Omni Knight in one game, so I'm okay with this. Oh, burn. That's fine. It's neat. I mean, that's I kind of like that change. Messing with the stickiness, I think, is a decent way to try to like not make it a stupid powerful aura, but make it good and useful. I mean, that's a pretty long time. Even if you get slowed or you get a short stun, you might be able to catch back up. So I like that one a pretty decent amount. Outworld Devour, Astral Imprisonment cast reintroduced by 50. Fair. Your thoughts?
Fair.
Fair it is. Phantom Assassin. Invisible heroes now trigger Blur. Blur delay reduced from 1.5 to 0.75.
Buff.
Buffs abound.
Buffs abound. I mean, so the blur effect, for those who are kind of unsure what that means, is whenever a hero was within a certain range of Phantom Assassin, she disappeared off their minimap. So, yeah, you could still physically see her, but you couldn't see her on the minimap. Now, when the invisible heroes are within that range, they also trigger that blur effect. And the delay used to be apparently 1.5 seconds. Now, 3/4 of a second. So it's even quicker that you get that mini map blur. So there you go.
Yes. Let's skip Phoenix because we're going to talk about him next week.
Yeah.
Queen of Pain, Scepter cooldown, 40 seconds at all ranks, only ultimate. Pretty nice buff to her. It's sad that we don't get to see her anymore. I don't know. Why, Jay? Why can't we have Queen of Pain?
We can. We can and we will. We can and we will. The thing is, this is actually a good change. This is a very good change. Queen of Pains sometimes still get scepters as their main first item. It really does vary. It's Lincoln's might be more popular these days as a first item or something else. Sheepstick, depending. Orchid's very popular as a first item on her, but to go for that straight team fight now, if you get it, you have a huge incentive to make that 40 seconds off the first and second rank. Also, is enormous, and yeah, it's going to be hard to really keep that mana pool flowing as team fights continue on at a rapid pace. So you're going to have to have some kind of bottle regen or some going to base often or some kind of frequency there. But I think this is a very great change. I think it's just like I said, giving her that much more reason to go for that early fight AoE build instead of that more like single target pick-off build.
Yeah, okay. Ricky, base HP regen increase from 0.75 to 1.5. I'm going to throw a couple more of these in here just so we can move this along, group them up a bit.
Yeah.
Sand King Sandstorm radius increases from 275 at rank 1 up
now
to
plays
525.
music.
It now plays music.
Plays the Sandstorm song from Darude.
525 at all ranks. And Shadow Demon can have one more stack of Shadow Poison.
Which is actually really big. The people calculated the math on that, said it used to do, I believe it's upwards of like 500-ish damage at that 4th rank. Now it's up to 1,000 damage with 5th rank.
Oh.
So it's a rather huge increase. And then if you, with throwing the extra bonus damage from his other move on top of there. So, yeah, actually, as small as it looks, could be really mighty of a change. So we'll be on the lookout to see if that changes the way maybe their skill builds go or something else along those lines.
Yeah, the Ricky change I like, doubling the HP regeneration. The problem with Ricky is still the Force Staff, which, I don't know that you're ever really going to be able to fix that. But it's nice that he gets a little bit of help in the earlier parts of the game, gives him a little bit more presence. Obviously going to make him a little bit rougher to deal with in the pubs, but overall, pretty okay, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Nice change. Shadow Shaman, Shackle's duration increased at 0.25 at all ranks. Now 5 seconds at rank 4.
Yes.
And Mass Serpent Wards can no longer make Roshan look like a pansy.
What a good change. Yeah, people have been taking way too much advantage of that over the past month or so. So, very good change there. Silencer, global silence cooldown reduced 10 seconds from 140 to 130, so good buff for him.
I really like that one, actually. I know Merlini has said in the past that he thinks that Silencer is totally viable, and I agree. And I really like, again, making some of these heroes that aren't used as often much more able to fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's definitely a good change overall. So now down 10 more seconds, making that a little bit less time in between. Scarith Mage, ulti damage increased. Mystic Flare from basically 1200 at last rank to 1400. So he gains 100/200 damage at a couple last ranks there. In the way I think I was listening to Draskell's talking, he said basically, it costs a lot of mana. I feel like it should do a lot of damage, so I have no problem with this change at all. And I'm like, that sounds about right. An extra couple hundred damage at the last rank. I think for like how much mana you're putting into it, I have no problems with that.
Especially when you consider that you're not necessarily going to get the full damage on anybody. You're going to potentially split it. Yeah, I'm fine with this. And, Skyrath doesn't get picked anyway, so I would really like to see him. So,
Dandy, come on.
Slardar, Bash, very strong when leveled up. Now hits for an additional 30 damage at the last rank. Fine, I like this.
They buffed Dazzle and Slardar, I don't understand. Like, do they just want that lane to be in every game or something?
I mean, they buffed Treant too. I mean, we still got to get there. I mean, they're just all the really awesome best heroes just getting buffed.
Mm-hmm.
Fact. Slark, pounce damage reduced by 40 at the last rank. Shadow Dance cooldown reduced by 5 seconds. A little bit of buff to the ultimate. That's already pretty nice. And pounce nerfed a bit.
Yeah.
What do you think?
A little bit less damage at all those ranks, and I think this is definitely a good change. He's obviously been picked quite a bit, very popular in the current meta, and Pounce being one of the biggest nuisances to deal with. So while the cooldown's still very short, that last rank, that wasn't touched. The damage at least a little bit tweaked, so not as bursty as he once was. But as you said, the Shadow Dance actually getting a buff. 5 seconds off that cooldown is pretty nice. And ever since the change being so strong, now that he's can just be in that farm without being detected in any way, shape, or form. Well, I'm sorry, excuse me, except for Faceless Halt. That new Faceless Halt that's coming in. but yeah, I think this... well, I guess it's good and bad for him. I guess he all around is not getting changed enough where he's going to be any different.
Yes, and welcome to my least favorite change of the patch. Sniper, take aim range bonus increased from 80 up to 320 to 100 up to 400.
That's a far range.
I have to vent.
Okay, feel free. Here we go.
In my opinion, Sniper has 2 obnoxious spells and then 2 dumb ones. Maybe instead of trying to make the obnoxious spells stronger, we fix the dumb ones. Era still rocks the Flint Beastwood icon when playing Dota 2.
We don't want that in our game, though.
Because here's my thing, right? Those times that you lose to Sniper, it happens. It happens to all of us. You're like, wow, that's really stupid that he's had such a long range and stuns and hits for Jillian. And I feel like increasing the effectiveness of the obnoxious stuff is not a good way to deal with the hero. And you figure too, Shrapnel, the cool thing about it, quote unquote, is the fact that it does damage to buildings, but who cares? I mean, like we said with Flint Beastwood from Heroes of Newerth, the Sniper port over to that game, I believe you left a slowing effect on the person hit by it was a flare in that game, but by the shrapnel, so that they were slowed even after they left the AoE, and it also revealed
the stickiness
invisible
of
targets. I hate you so much. And also revealed invis targets. I'm not saying we gotta go that route with it. I'm not saying you gotta do something crazy to assassinate. I'm just saying let's try tweaking the stuff that
needs work.
Yeah.
Take aim. I mean, it's now maximum 950 range. That's insane. That is such a far range. I mean, he's going to be, like you said, even better at what he was already good at. He's going to be hitting towers with that much more ease late game. He's going to be hitting heroes from so much farther away. I mean, it's going to be kind of crazy. And but obviously, this change is not going to do anything at all to his viability. It's not one bit. And that's how his past couple tweaks have been. They've been minor little damage increases or things that just are not really changes. And maybe they're just not sure how they want to go about solving that problem. I mean, obviously they're struggling. I mean, I've already solved their problem. If you recall a previous episode where I discussed how it used to be in Dota 1, where it was he shot up in the air and then it landed all at once. It was just like a burst of damage. That was so much more useful, in my opinion, than how it currently is. Because it might have been a shorter range and not as consistent, but at least it kind of gave something else to him. It was that burst. And it worked on towers, so, I mean, that was good. But, I don't know. You're right. Something else needs to happen with this hero besides just, hey, let's give him 5 more range and maybe that'll solve our problems. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Spirit Breaker, you now gain vision over your target while you casting Nether Strike. Okay. Storm Spirit, base movement speed reduced from 295 to 290, making an already susceptible hero a little bit more susceptible 1 to 5. I'm okay with it though.
Yep.
Yeah. This one kind of big. Sven base armor increased by 3.
Huge.
Now brings it to 9. 8 or 9. It's huge. It's ridiculous.
Sven's all about big things.
Okay. Maybe you know him a little bit too
Chris
personally.
With his cleaves.
Oh, right. Warcry cooldown reduced from 36 to down to 18 to 32 down to 14. It's a reduction of 4 seconds at all ranks. This was the spell that we kept nerfing into the ground to try and take him out of the game, and now we're buffing it back a little bit. Okay. Base armor now a lot more viable in the early game. Oh, and Blink Dagger's free. Just saying.
If this is correct, his base armor is now 5.
No. Isn't it a lot more than that?
We'll have to do some research, but the
We're
point
going to
is,
have to crunch some numbers.
3 in general is a big number off the bat, so that's a really big buff in general. And the Warcry cooldown reduction, which obviously affects armor that much more. Yeah, I think these are some really nice changes for him. So he's going to be that much more beefy in these fights, and he already does plenty of damage, so those numbers don't need to really be changed. So very, very interesting to see those come out.
Yeah. Terrorblade. We'll skip these.
Yeah,
we'll get to him eventually. We'll probably get there.
Oh my gosh, we haven't even cracked that open.
Oh, there's so much more to this episode. We don't even know. Tidehunter. I actually really like these. Crack and Shell debuff threshold reduced from 600 to 600 down to 450. You also get the damage block increased. So by 1, increasing all ranks. So 4 at rank 4, increased by 1 at rank 1. So I like these. I feel like that's a great place to try and affect Tidehunter because obviously all of his other spells are pretty strong.
Yeah, no, these are definitely very, very good changes for him. Like you said, his other moves, Gush, Anchor Smash, his Ravage, all don't really need any tweaking. I mean, they all seem to be, after they nerfed the Ravage, people are like, oh, Tidehunter done for life. And yeah, he has actually been out of the scene quite a bit ever since they did change that speed up on it. But this is nice. This is helping his survivability, which obviously also helps his potential offlaning again, because he did that quite a bit. Hannah Montana, we all will remember that name in infamy. But maybe giving him that kind of shot back there to go over there, get some experience, get some farm, and have his way with the new Broodmother. Who knows?
Oh, kinky. Timbersaw base strength reduced. Fine with that. Reduced by 3. This change, however, I'm so just thrown off, and I don't know what to think, Jay. Maybe you can help me out here. Tinker added Aghanim Scepter, doubles laser cast range, and heat-seeking missile count. 4 missiles.
Yes.
And super laser. It's like GoldenEye. It's like giant satellite in space that just comes down and melts everything. What are your thoughts on it?
1100 range laser. It's almost like a Kotal Wave.
Is that all?
Range. And 4 missiles, instead of 2. So he's basically like one of our missile silos in the United States, and just firing them off like as we're going for oil. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know where I'm going with that, but we're not getting political here. Yeah, I think
push knows.
I think it's interesting. I mean, obviously the way he's currently built, he gets that March Machines maxed out really early, gets the Boots of Travels, and just goes to different lanes, farming and pushing and being just a crazy good, farmer and ganker. But, obviously in order to really benefit from this Aghanims, you need to also max out your laser and heat seeking or put a lot of points in them. But by the time you get the Aghanims, that's the way I was kind of looking at it. I'm like, well, it's not going to be your first item. You're going to clearly still go to the Boots of Travel, Soul Ring, Force Staff, or Blink are usually your top 3 items on this hero anyways. And then maybe you get whatever next, Sheep Stick, which obviously still might be better than Aghanims. I mean, there's a lot of choices these Tinkers still have to make. Is it really worth getting over some of the, like a Sheep at that 4th slot or something? I mean, but potentially yes, depending on, I guess, how it goes. Do you need the range and the 4 missiles when you're trying to siege a base? Perhaps you do over a Sheep Stick. I mean, are you turtling? Well, then you definitely would like it because you get to shoot 4 missiles at a time. I mean, that's pretty insane. So, I don't know.
Where I ran into trouble was, it sounds cool in theory, but I was like, okay, this just makes blade mailing Tinker even more hilarious.
Oh God, he's done.
Because now it's even easier to hard counter Tinker with mass blade mails. Where I think the others, I hated this change. I thought it was terrible. when I first read it, just because of that. I'm like, well, now even puppies are going to do it because it just makes so much sense to reflect that much burst damage back at Tinker. Um, you can obviously sort of deal with that with like a Yule Scepter because most of the rockets are going to be hitting all at once. But the thing that actually really kind of got me thinking about this being a potentially good item is if you are in these like push strat scenarios. I know me and Bonk actually had a conversation about Tinker when we lost to a team comp. I'm like, yeah, well, they had a lot of push, but it was like, well, when you have the Tinker, it's like if you're going against that, you sort of have push and that you have clear, but you don't really damage the tower or actually, you basically create a safe zone that you can try and attack the tower under. You aren't actually pushing. And I kind of like the increased range and the increased number of missiles for a style of Tinker where you say, I'm going to be behind a pushing lineup. I'm going to not need the Blink Dagger because I'm not going to have to get right on top of things to lay down my March of Machines. And when I think about it in that respect, I kind of like it. It almost feels like an alternative to a straight-up March of Machines build. It feels like a base-cracking, push-oriented Tinker. And I kind of like that, as opposed to, blink into the trees that you can lay down the march and just farm for forever and then get a scythe. I feel like if you're on a team that gets really far ahead really quickly, then this is a great nail in the coffin. There's no way they can defend their high ground when they have 4 rockets coming at them. But as soon as you get the money to blade mail, I feel like it's kind of countered.
Are you saying it's good to have diversity in builds for heroes?
No.
Because I'm not liking that one bit.
Stats are a Crystal Maiden.
Obviously.
Nothing else.
Maybe even go with the Bloodstone if you're gonna go the Aghanims. Keep the good times rolling. I don't know, but we'll have to see if that actually gets picked up because Tinker is obviously not really that popular in the pro scene right now, but he's occasionally picked up, especially by I believe Southeast Asian teams love him a lot more than the Western side. So we'll have to see maybe if he gets picked up, and if people think it's a good choice, we'll see how effective it can be used. But wow, let's keep rolling. Let's see if we can keep these changes going. I think it's been over 2 hours. I don't even know at this point. I've been lost in the time-space continuum, and I just don't know what's not Dota related in my life right now. But
there's nothing.
Nothing important, that's for sure. Tree Protectors overgrowth AoE increased from 625 to 675, and the guy's cast range increased from 300 to 600. So doubled the range on that.
I don't care about guys. I still think it's not.
I'm trying to make it sound important.
Yeah, well, the overgrowth thing though I do actually really like because in the Starlighter finals actually you get to see Puppy play a Treant Protector, gets some amazing overgrowth off, and you actually I think really get an appreciation for that spell that you might not have otherwise because it doesn't do damage, and we typically think of Treant Protector as just being that living armor, but I think it's nice getting that little bit of a buff to the spell. It's already got its potential to be strong, and I like Treant Protector being viable enough to be more than just a hero that is in the types of lineups that Na'Vi ran against Alliance in Game 2 of their series. It was Treant Protector, Dazzle, and then it was 3 cores. I like the idea of maybe being able to get Treant Protector in a more diverse lineup than something like that. And I think that's a good way to help put him there.
Well, I'm only going to think of him as Nature's Guide's buff now. That's it. That's all I can think of him as.
Everyone's invisible.
Everyone except only one at a time. But that's fine. Troll Warlord. Fervor max stacks rescale from 2, 3, 4, 5 to 4. His attack speed per stack rescale from 20 to 16 all the way up to 34. So actually getting a buff here. And he's not really popular, but I guess that helps him a bit.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember why he fell off in the first place. I don't really remember off the top of my head, but I'm okay with this. I wasn't a big fan of seeing him around, but obviously he doesn't get picked at all anymore, so I'm cool with it. Jay,
can I vent? Is this my turn to vent?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm slightly perturbed here.
Okay.
Slightly meaning completely.
Okay.
As many of you should know, I completed my 25 Tusk games and came out on top. Positive record. And now they buff Tusk. No, now they buff Tusk. Not when I was in the 25 game series here. No, now they choose to. And may I say, really nice buffs on top of that. So, secondary units hit by Snowball now take the same impact as the primary unit. So damage and stun go up a little bit on those other targets as well. Removed the 50% threshold mechanic. So now he just always does big crit on his wall rift punch. And the base crit increased from 3 to 3.5. Well, when I say big punch, I mean that's just it. So it's always 3.5 instead of having to worry about being under 50 to do the bigger crit. Now you just always do 3.5. So it's less stress on, oh, I want to use my ulti, but I got to do a little bit more damage here. Is he under 50? I don't even know. No, now you just carefree to start punching because it's a short cooldown. Just go Mike Tyson on him and just knock him out. I mean, it's, some might say, oh, it's a nerf because it's less chance or less damage overall. No, it's not less damage overall because you don't have. It's more consistency. It's more reliability, and a lot of times, especially later in the game, it's not so easy to be under 50%. You want to use it earlier in the fight for the crowd control more than the damage at that point. So you get kind of the best of both worlds at that point. I think these are great changes, and maybe Loda won't be the only one playing them anymore. That's all I'm saying.
Well, yet another game from the Starlighter Finals that I studied so well. You actually saw Aki, I believe it was, playing the Tusk in one of the games.
He did.
The support Tusk, and you really got to see how it was sort of underwhelming. It sort of got in the way of their IO combination a little bit. It was even in the as soon as they saw it picked, Merlini's talking about like, yeah, well, Tusk is kind of underwhelming as a carry, but he's kind of okay as a support. So really not fitting into either role particularly well. And these are all buffs, and I'm happy to see it that he's getting some more buffs. I mean, he got some last patch as well.
Yeah.
So good to see that continues. Soul Rip cooldown reduced on Undying. That's cool, I guess.
Sure.
More heals. Great.
Per square inch.
Vengeful Spirit Wave of Terror armor reduction increased from 2 up to 5 to 3 up to 6. And this is a 50% increase at rank 1.
Stop trying to make it sound like it's more mighty than it is.
It's very nice, especially at level 2 when, heroes are going to have pretty much their lowest armor. I mean, I think that's actually a really nice buff to Vengeful Spirit. It's not like she's going to show up in every game now, but I'm okay with changes that make her more viable.
No, I agree. I mean, it's definitely a buff. It's just, it's not major, which is good. And, this is kind of where I was going with that same vein from earlier, where they didn't necessarily nerf all these heroes that are in the popular meta, but they did buff a lot of heroes that aren't as popular. And this was one of them that was kind of a little bit shunned away from, but now just kind of giving her a little nod saying, yeah, remember her? Yeah, she's even a little bit better now. And definitely a good choice there. And speaking of the ones that did get nerfed, though, your buddy coming up here.
Venomancer, see, I played him in his prime.
We had the opposite ends here.
Although, if I had played the nerf Venomancer, I would have been much angrier than you, as I had to do it for 4 times as long.
True.
But base damage reduced by 5, HP regeneration set to standard, 0.25, fine by me. Visage, base movement speed reduced by 5, I believe the second movement speed nerf to Visage now. Grave Chill mana cost is now 100 to all ranks, and familiars are properly magical immune.
They were previously 96% and immune to most stuns. But now they're actually magic immune. Yay.
Fantastic, 4%.
We did it.
All fine. I mean, I think that's all still fair.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind Visage being terribly slow, since Grave Chill can sort of fix that.
Yeah, exactly.
And, the mana cost, it's fine.
Well, I mean, that actually kind of is a big deal, because his Soul Rip is obviously really expensive, especially early game. So, to
Soul
increase...
Assumption.
Yeah, that's
Soul Rip is Undying.
We were just talking about it, sorry. Still in my head. Soul Assumption. Close enough. They both involve souls. But yeah, I think that actually is 30 extra mana at that first rank, because you obviously do not level it up very early. So, I don't know. I think it's a pretty good nerf to him. Pretty decent size.
Warlock Upheaval max duration increased fine by me. This I actually
Are you
didn't
really going to
realize.
sit there and channel it for 16 seconds?
If you can, then you should just win the game off that. If you can do that. If you can do it in the woods by yourself with no one around, and someone doesn't find you randomly in 16 seconds and stun you, then
Basically.
power to you. Wind Ranger Focus Fire mana cost reduced. Okay, why was it 400 mana?
I'm sorry. This is. I don't know if it's getting late or what, but these are just really funny to me. I agree completely. That was very. I mean, she's an it hero, but that's still quite a bit for an ability that only gets used on towers at the moment.
Yeah, and no longer has the cast animation. So
That's nice. That's nice, actually. It was a little bit of a hesitation there. So it's kind of like the difference between Split Earth having one and not. I'm just saying. Might bring her back in the game.
Totally. Witch Doctor Maledict AoE increased by 15.
Yes.
The Voodoo Restoration initial mana cost greatly reduced. At rank 4 previously it cost 100 mana, now it costs 50. Paralyzing Casks can now bounce into units in the Fog of War.
Well, I mean, his brother Dazzle's been getting so many buffs. He's like, excuse me, I'm a pretty decent healer if I recall correctly, but you guys keep forgetting about me, so, yeah, it's some good changes. Like, you talked about the Paralyzing Cask thing about the Fog of War already, so that's kind of interesting to see if it can, shoot all the way over to someone else. And the 115 AoE, sure. Give him a little bit extra love. It's obviously a tiny radius, so every little bit counts for that.
I really like Voodoo Restoration, and I think that I would like to see maybe not like roaming healing push balls, but I would like to see Witch Doctor taken advantage of for that spell, or let that spell become well enough balanced that it becomes useful. I do like the Witch Doctor, and I would like to see more of them.
Similar to AA buff, where it's like they took a move that's not as popular, leveling, and said, "Hey, it's a little bit better now. So why don't you give it a try?" Yeah, I think that's. And now you have more reason to level it, because originally you kept it at rank 1 because of the mana efficiency, and now you don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah. We're down to the last 2 heroes, kids.
Finally, we did it.
Wraith King Reincarnation Slow increased from 50 to 75. Reincarnation Slow Duration increased from 4 to 5 seconds. I really like the direction that they're trying to take with Wraith King, with really trying to make Ankh strong. In addition to just the fact that it brings you back to life, obviously. I get. See, it's weird because obviously you're getting a full new health bar, and that's fantastic. But the cooldown is so long on it that you feel like it almost has to do something pretty tremendous for your early game to try and make it feel viable. I mean,
what do you think
about this?
RP, I think. When you res, you should RP or something like that.
Black hole, just draw everybody into you.
That would be a bit ridiculous, I think. But
no,
the RP is fine, but that would be crossing the line. Yeah, it's actually 25% is a pretty dramatic increase. So it's a really 75% is a very, very big slow. But kind of like what you're saying, a lot of times when you get killed and you're rezzing, I mean, the only reason the slow would help is if the rest of your team's A, alive, and B, able to capitalize on them being slowed. So that's not always the case. So really, it's like, I really liked what they did with Shadow Fiend, where when he died, he exploded and did a second ult kind of thing that happens a lot. But this just feels interesting, but I'm not sure that it's really that useful.
Yeah, I'd like to see it maybe do a dot or something too, like something else that's maybe you would think of as not like game changing, but is still kind of icing on the cake. I don't know. He's
put
a tough hero
put
to
the
down.
debuff that his stun puts on people.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. Well,
a weaker slow, but some damage. Yeah.
Yeah. Last but not least, Arc Lightning cast range increased from 700 to 850, and the people rejoiced.
Woo! More range on Arc Lightning. On a hero that doesn't get picked. Alright, so we made it through the heroes. Right?
We did.
Oh yeah, we survived.
We survived it. Yeah, I mean, overall, like you said, I think a lot of the supports were put on par with one another, and I'm really excited. In particular, I think Brewmaster is the hero that I'm most excited for. I really want to see what kind of impact he has, and I feel like that changes enough, man. I feel like that's a good spot for him to be, and I'm really curious to see what happens.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to come back in with that huge change, and I think some of these other supports might start getting picked up as well. It'll be pretty cool.
I think for the items, oh, that's a lot. Okay, I changed my mind. Um, yeah, let's just run through these real quick then.
Quick.
Um, muy, muy quick. Animal Courier, Ground Courier bounty has been reduced by 25 per player. It's still the same on the Flying Courier. Mana cost increased on Arcane Boots by 10. The Cleave AoE on Battle Fury increased by 25. And then I guess I'll stop reading at this. This.
Let's wrap up the podcast here. Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, no, nothing else. Blink no longer has a mana cost. Might be the most game-changing change outside of maybe the Scroll of TP, which we haven't gotten to yet.
Right.
What do you think?
I think that's enormous. It's a huge buff for heroes with small mana pools. The Tide Hunters of the world, the Magnuses, all the strength heroes that we've kind of started Brewmaster, all those heroes that get it and need to make use. Obviously, the int heroes, it affects them too, but not nearly the scale in which the ones that basically only barely have enough to blink in and cast their 1 or 2 spells, and they're pretty much done. Now you don't have to worry about using it also just efficiently to travel around the map, perhaps. If you want to get to a fight quicker from your base, you can blink and not worry about you just use 75 mana to do that. It's a huge change, and I think it's going to be... how many times have you been in a situation where you've wanted to blink in an ulti or try to escape with a blink and you just haven't had... You were like 20 mana off doing whatever you were just trying to do?
26 times.
Wow, that's very exact.
Every single one of those times. No, but the other thing that I really like about this change is that it promotes naked blink dagger. You don't have to get the arcane boots first, and I think that opens up a lot of doors. Especially, again, for heroes like Axe, where it's like you have to build up this sort of ability to stay in the jungle, and then you have to build up some sort of way to manage your mana. Oh yeah, and then it's nice to have blink daggers that you can initiate. Now you can hopefully at least skip some of these steps, so you can at least, if you are a one-trick pony, you can do your trick really early and hopefully get something out of that helps you sustain yourself better. And I think that's what's really most important about the change. And also, for supports heroes that, yeah, like you said, they're ints, they're going to have bigger mana pools anyway. Some of them even have trouble casting all their spells or casting them multiple times, and a lot of them actually like the blink dagger as well. So being able to get this on the support off of brown boots or even just off of arcane boots, I think it's a really powerful change, and I'm really curious to see how much it impacts
I
them.
wonder, the Magnus, there used to be some math laid out there, which obviously I don't remember because it was math, but with Magnus about blinking over and ulting, then refresher orbing and ulting again, how much mana that took to do that whole combination. And there was at some breaking point where you need to either be a certain level or have a certain extra mana amount with like arcane boot use or something in order to do that full double combo. But now 75 mana extra, really huge, plus the 2 in that he gained in this patch. Really, they might have done that just so he could do that combination. I haven't, like I said, done the calculations, but it's pretty interesting if they added the 2 in just so he can, fully do that kind of combination. I mean, it might not be the only reason. Obviously, it helps his early game mana pool too, but it's kind of interesting to see how maybe dramatically this really impacts a hero like Magnus as well.
Yeah, I'm going to group up a couple of these because they sort of are in similar veins. Shadow Amulet, Fade Delay improved to 1.5 seconds, can be cast on allies. Observer wards can be targeted on allies as well as sentry wards to transfer charge. And we also have the bottle, which you can now actually use a charge on an ally. I think overall neat stuff. I think the thing I like the most, the Shadow Amulet thing is fine. Okay. I'm not super thrilled about that. I guess there are some opportunities where that can come into play. It does have a 600 cast range, which is pretty nice. But the biggest one for me, I think, is the wards, because you sort of sometimes have to make this decision of, well, do I want my offlaner to have a really good time, or do I want our defensive lane to be extra safe? Now being able to split up the wards is, I think, actually really nice.
That's a really nice change. It's also for sentries, a really, really great change for that as well. You can put one in the top lane, one in the bottom lane, and do some counter warding in both instead of just having two top lane. The only time you'd really want that is if you're maybe going against an invisible hero. Otherwise, two might be a little overkill. And now this bottom lane can take out some wards himself, and it can be really useful. So I think the bottle use thing as well. I mean, these are really nice changes. It kind of exactly in the same path as the Tango that they decided to do with that, where here's a charge. I'm going to share my stuff with you in a good way, and I think these are really positive influences that not only support like sharing and caring and blah blah blah, but also just that much more teamwork and cooperation to get the objective done.
Yeah, my favorite change in the whole patch, Iron Branch, gold cost reduced from 53 to 50. Diffusal Blade, agility bonus has been increased by 3 for rank 1 and by 4 on rank 2.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's not necessarily making it so good that, everyone should start building diffusal blades, but it definitely is a nice change, and it's obviously not been picked up a whole lot except for PL and Ricky, but maybe we start seeing it back on Mirana, start seeing these other heroes who obviously really love to get that agility stacked up. I think it's a good change for it.
Drums of Endurance, number of charges increased, and the recipe cost is increased by 75. Charges increased to 5. I like this change a lot, actually. It's kind of nice, I think, that you don't necessarily have to have multiples of them. You kind of see, I think we mentioned already, the number of times that people have kind of just gone like naked bracers and not taken it all the way to Drums of Endurance, but increasing the cost kind of, I think, makes you less likely to get it on just your random support hero. Might make it a more conscious decision, and then also giving you the extra charge stops it from becoming less useful so early in the game.
I was going to say, you shouldn't be afraid to use the charges, because it's such a very nice way to kind of help your team in a very specific instance, and only 4 seems very lackluster, because you can get it, I mean, not super early, but you can get it within the 20 minutes as a support if you're doing half decent. And, these games sometimes go 50 minutes to an hour plus, and, 4 charges will definitely fly by in that time period. So I think it's nice to give 75 more gold for another charge is a very good deal for these players, and, they're definitely, I'm sure, willing to take that hit to get that extra charge.
Yep, Yule Scepter Divinity, Cyclone cooldown reduced, a little bit of buff there. Yep. Force Staff travel speed is reduced, now it takes 0.4 seconds instead of 0.3 to move the full distance. A little bit of a nerf there. Mask of Madness buffed, lifesteal increased by 3%. Mjolnir changed the area type that's used, so it now is in a full AoE instead of a cone. Thoughts on any of these? Any of them particularly interesting to you?
We're going to see Mask of Madness, Svens, and Spirit Breakers all the time now, clearly.
Of course.
But I do
Mask
actually
of Madness, Spirit Bear.
Oh.
Because Entangle.
We got to get those orbs stacking. I'm sorry, the other one's not an orb anymore. But yeah, you kind of brushed over Iron Branch. That's a big change, in a way.
Okay, go ahead.
The three gold reduction lets these supports and these other players actually get 2 when they normally would only be able to afford 1 or so. That extra stat, +1 to each all stats, is actually really nice. So I think it's a really good change for them, and also I don't know. I just think it's something to not be completely overlooked. So now, when you're playing your support heroes out there, people, just see how much gold and see what you can afford, and you're starting to see what is most efficient with your money.
Yeah, absolutely. This one, I guess, as much as we want to try to get to Terrorblade, we kind of have to stop for the Necronomicon. Necronomicon unit bounty increased at the last rank to 200, at the second rank to 150. The armor was reduced from 6, 8, 10 to 4 at all ranks, and the cooldown was increased from 80 to 95 seconds. I don't know if this is the death of Necronomicon gaming, but it certainly hurts, especially when you consider that this ranged one is particularly squishy now and gives a decent amount of money.
These were so good. Hey, I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure someone in this podcast a long time said, "Get your fill of Necro now because it's about to get nerfed."
Was it Purge?
I don't think it was Purge. I think it was me. But
Mm.
but yeah, it's no, it's very very good. I mean, we see these Necros popping up on so many people. Even a lot of supports are starting to get them. And I mean, it's just such a good item. You know, it made a lot of sense for everyone to be getting this. And the armor nerf was very good because they were so hard to take out for some of these players. I think that's a great thing to get down to 4. The cooldown increased 15 more seconds, just, not as frequent detection and ward control with it. I think all around a very positive thing to do to nerf that.
Yeah, some minor tweaks to a bunch of items. Radiance, the damage bonus increased by 5. Refresher Orb, cost reduced by 75 on the recipe. Ring of Aquila gives 3 more agility now. Rod of Atos buffed, 25 more health given. Saint Yasha slow duration increased from 4 to 5, and the slow was increased, or 4 to 5 seconds, pardon me, and the actual slow increased from 30 to 32%. Any of those stand out to you?
Why do you think they increased it 2%? Like, what was the incentive?
1%.
There?
Because 1% is not enough and 3 is too much.
Beautiful answer. I think Rod of Atos buff is wonderful. Let's just keep buffing that item until it's on every single hero, for cripe's sake. I mean, 25 more health is obviously not dramatic, but you think about the heroes that are getting it. A lot of times it's a support hero, and giving them a little bit more health is just that much more helpful. I see this item popping up a lot more than it used to, for sure. It's all the buffs getting the cooldown reduction it got. I mean, it's good. I used to laugh at this item in its face, literally in its face. I would point and laugh at it, and I'm not proud of it, but I did it. And I'm going back now, and I'm like trying to be friends with it, like hey, you want to go have ice cream? I mean, it's just so good. It's like almost perfect for a support. Health, mana, CC, or not exactly CC, but some kind of it's CC. I mean, I don't know. I just can't believe that they're still buffing it after all this time.
Yeah, I mean it's already an efficient item, and they're putting more stats onto it, so it's kind of hard to not like. I mean, I'm a fan of the item, and yeah, like you said, we're seeing more and more of it already as it is. So. Fine with me. And another item that I could totally see some more of, Shiva's Guard. The Arctic Blast range increased up to 900, and the blast speed was increased by 50. So pretty dramatic increase there. And I'm happy to see that one. Smoke duration decreased by 5 seconds. Pretty decent, but I think the biggest one, probably aside from the change that we were talking about earlier, it's going to be to the teleport scrolls. Stacking delay decreased from 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 to 3, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5. So 1.5 seconds less on the last teleport in. And the max targeting range increased from 525 to 575. So now you can teleport a little bit further out, and you can get there a little bit faster. I think going back to what I was talking about earlier with like the change to Blink Dagger as well, I think this patch is really a lot about making people a lot more mobile and much more ready to fight.
Yeah, no, and for those who are not exactly sure what the stacking delay means, is basically the first one teleports in, gets that 2-second channel time, and every person beyond that, there's a delay for each pending. In a certain time period, you keep stacking up that delay. So, like it says, it goes up to 3 seconds, and then 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, all the way up for the last hero to come in. And getting a second and a half off the last, now granted, there's not tons of situations where like 5 people teleport to one tower, but these situations do occur, at least in the mid ranks. At least you see that happen quite a bit, where you'll see 3 teleports come in for a tower or something, and getting that extra half second really can make the biggest difference in getting the jump on someone or being able to defend the tower. I think it's great. The 50 range is actually rather large too. I was playing a test game earlier and was just testing out the different from both like being defensive all the way behind your tower, all the way to being offensive and seeing how far out I could be teleporting. And it was almost to the point of the ramp in middle lane where I could go out to. I mean, that's really substantial for catching people off out of position, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty important one, and I'm curious to see that buff's impact. Tranquil Boots movement speed increased by 5 up to 90, and the HP regen is up from 10 to 12, and this is with Unbroken Boots. I think a nice little buff to, especially your roaming supports potentially. If they're having a really bad game with getting the money together, being able to come in, participate, be full health whenever they arrive, wherever they want to go. There's another buff. I mean, I think it's still the biggest problem with this now is that these boots still can't be disassembled, which is probably fair, but still trying to balance that out with some of the stats.
Yeah, I'm still not the biggest fan of these boots, but I think it has their use, and like you said, it's got a little bit of buff. So for those that are going to get it, they're going to be benefiting that much more. So yeah, sure, why not? That's fine. Veil of Discord gets 3 extra strength, agility, and damage. What?
That was the finale, and you just sort of...
Oh, sorry. Drum roll, please. Veil of Discord is slightly better.
Yep. Okay, well, that was fun. There you go. We hit all the patch notes, friends. I mean, on the Veil of Discord, I guess it's nice that it provides better strength and agility, better survival stats for some of these supports. I mean, Sand King at the end of the day is a strength hero, so you can't forget that.
I could, but
good.
I shouldn't probably.
Are
we really doing Terrorblade now?
Here's what we should do, because we've been going forever.
We've been going for over 2 hours. Yeah.
Let's give our general. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mute that one. Oh, I made it all this time.
You were so close.
I'm sorry. Let's very briefly talk about our general, like the spells, the stats, and then next week we're gonna dive in deep with Terrorblade, with item builds, with laning and strategy, and also touching on Phoenix. I think that'll be a great way to do next week and a great way to end today.
Yes.
So I know you are probably a bigger fan of Terrorblade than I am. So, you know what, sir? Take it away, my friend.
Okay, Terrorblade. He's got himself 4 abilities. Count it, 4.
Strange.
First one, strange, very bizarre, but yet it happened. Reflection, and by the way, in Dota 1, this hero has gotten a lot of reworks, but you don't have to worry about that. Thankfully, this is the end product you get to experience in this game. Reflection, basically, he creates a phantom illusion of the target that slows them and attacks them, and this thing can't be attacked itself. It's really big slow, 60%, so really nice. Conjure image. He creates an image of himself that does damage and takes extra damage, but lasts 32 seconds, 16-second cooldown, pretty nice. Metamorphosis. He basically goes and gets a ranged form. He's a melee hero starting out. Turns into a 550 attack range with 20 up to 80 bonus damage, lasting 40 up to 52 second duration, but has a 140 second cooldown. So really long, over 2-minute cooldown on this. I have to treat it like a special spell that it is. And then his ultimate, Sunder. Only 250 range, but basically he swaps his health with the opponent's health. But some of Terrorblade's health has to remain, and the minimum health goes all the way down to 15% at the last rank. It starts at 120 second cooldown, down to 40 seconds at the last rank, and costing no mana at the last rank.
Yeah, and I think this is a hero where it's definitely, like I said at the beginning of this episode, we've sort of touched on it a lot more recently about how important the hero's just general stats are. I think this is a hero that it becomes really important on, because you look at this hero, he has 315% movement speed. He has 7 armor to start, which is just ridiculous. He has the second highest agility gain of any agility hero, only behind Phantom Lancer, and for good reason, because this is a hero that obviously works off of having illusions with Conjure Image. He starts off with a little low health. It makes him a little susceptible early game, but when you look at how he can ramp up in his stats, when you look at the improvements that he gets in leveling Sunder and just the cooldown and the mana cost, and also what you're able to get out of leveling Metamorphosis. This hero to me feels a lot like he needs he has good stats to give himself a solid start, but if you're able to hold him down in the early game, he could really struggle to stay relevant.
Yeah, but his late game is generally very dominating if you can get off to the right start. Very great pusher, very great damage dealing source in the fight, super strong auto attacker, and it just scales throughout the game incredibly well with his images and his Sunder. So yeah, definitely something, a reckoning force, and I'm definitely excited to talk about him next week for sure.
Also important to note is the fact that Reflection has, I think, my favorite art for a spell.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's super important. That's going to make the hero viable.
Oh, is
really,
that it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, I think the only other thing that I want to mention just really quick before we say our farewells is that Metamorphosis. It is weird. You were talking to me about it earlier, just how the cooldown on that spell is so much more ridiculous than Sunder's. The ultimate, it's only a 40-second cooldown. Metamorphosis has at 140. But it gives you that dramatic damage increase, and when you conjure the images, you propagate that damage to your images. They also are the ranged form of you, and you're able to have two illusions as well. So you can really stack up a lot of extra damage, a lot of just a lot of extra damage using that Metamorphosis in conjunction with your conjure image. So, get out there, similar to like what we were talking about with Phoenix, get out there, give this hero a try. Drop by our facebook.com/DoD-on-Demand, our YouTube channel, where you can leave comments directly on the videos. You can come by and tweet at us and tell us what you think of Terrorblade as well as Phoenix. Do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I really appreciate everyone that tuned in live this episode. We had a few of you guys, and it was a lot of fun for you guys to join in the discussion. So, we're going to try to be here every Tuesday if we can, but we'll give you guys Facebook updates, so make sure you're following us to see when we actually are going live. And, stay updated.
Absolutely. Until next week, guys, go out there, play some Dota, watch some Dota, have fun with Dota. See you next time.